Chapter 45:21. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Deep Beichin and the three beasts were overjoyed. After sleeping for so long, the white dragon has finally awakened. Xiao Hei could not help but sigh. You guys rest here. I'll go out and check on the white dragon. All right. The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun left the forest world and returned to the Great Hall in the Chaos Ring. Sure enough, as soon as they returned to the Great Hall, they saw the awakened white dragon. The white dragon was very happy to see Bailey Hongzhuang. You're not dead after all. Upon hearing the white dragon's words, Bailey Hongzhuang understood that their previous judgment was right. The reason she could come to the upper realm was because of the white dragon's help. Thank you for saving me. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and thanked the white dragon. She was really grateful to the white dragon for saving her from that crisis. Otherwise, she would have turned into a speck of dust by now. The white dragon waved its hand. It wasn't easy for me to find a master. If you were to die just like that, I would be dead too. So saving you is also saving myself. Di Beichen had long known about the white dragon's existence. However, after sensing the white dragon's powerful aura at this moment, he could not help but sigh in his heart. The dragon clan was indeed blessed by the heavens. They were all powerful existences. At the same time, the white dragon also noticed Di Beichen's existence and could not help but show a hint of surprise in its eyes. Your power gives me a very familiar feeling, Yi Zichen said. As soon as the white dragon's voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were both stunned. The white dragon was the dragon of light. How could it be familiar with the power of darkness? The power of darkness? Di Beichun was also a little surprised. However, he quickly understood. You were in the darkness ruins before. It's normal for you to be familiar with the power of darkness. No, the white dragon thought about it and shook its head. It should be that your aura gives me a familiar feeling. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were puzzled. The white dragon had never seen Di Beichun before. Logically speaking, it should not be familiar with him. However, they did not doubt the white dragon's words. White dragon, why do you feel familiar with Beichun's aura? Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but ask. Ask. The white, these memories. I can't remember. 1. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also sighed. She already knew that the white dragon had such a problem. Beichun. But. The white. The white. The white, the white, the white, the white. There. Don't think about it if you can't remember. Bailey Hongzhuang saw that the white dragon was still stubbornly trying to recall. You've just woken up. Don't hurt yourself. All right. The white dragon was helpless. It always felt that many things were right in front of its eyes, but it could not remember them. It was really depressing. It tried to think about it in detail, but in the end, it did not gain anything other than a splitting headache. Instead of tormenting itself like this, it would be better to cultivate in peace. It believed that these memories would slowly recover in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang was very happy to see the white dragon's carefree attitude. Chapter 45:22. Although the white dragon had awakened, it was not in a very good state right now, so Bailey Hongzhuang asked the white dragon to meet up with Baishur and the others. The elemental energy in the forest world was abundant, so the white dragon should be able to recover faster if it cultivated there. The white dragon agreed with this. Now that it was in the same boat as Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai, it did not feel uncomfortable or inappropriate. After Bailey Hongzhuang came out of the Chaos Ring, sure enough, Serene and the others were looking for them. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang and Shang Waning had finally opened the door, everyone was relieved. Were you guys in closed-door cultivation before this? Serene looked at Di Beichen and Shang Waning, who were safe and sound, and felt relieved. Di Beichen nodded. That's right. You scared us to death. You didn't tell us that you were going into closed-door cultivation. We didn't hear from you for a few days, so we thought something had happened. Shang Waning patted her chest and sighed. Ever since they knew that Di Beichen and Shang Waning had an inexplicable enemy here, they had been extremely careful. After all, the other party was very strong. Although they felt that they had been hiding well since they came to Rome and City, no one could be sure that the other party had not found any clues. This time, seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang and Shang Wanning had suddenly disappeared, they could not help but worry. We also suddenly went into closed-door cultivation. We didn't expect it to be so long. Bailey Hongzhuang said apologetically. As long as you guys are fine, we can rest assured. These few days, we have successfully converted our elemental energy into elemental energy. The upper realm is really different from the lower realm. The cultivation method is also completely different. Xiren's face was filled with a spring breeze smile. What are you guys going to do next? Hearing Xiren's words, Bailey Hongzhuang understood that he wanted to ask them how they could determine who the enemy was. Currently, there are 3 suspects: Gong Tianfeng, the Shao family, and the Di family. Di Beichen's expression became more serious, and his gaze was deep and dignified. The Di family is too far away from us now, so we can only start from the first 2. Although Gong Tianfeng is the vice president of the Holy Assembly and is stronger than us, I don't think she can make such an assassin take action, so I plan to rule out Xiao Rojin. Hearing this, when Xiren and the others also nodded, I'm afraid it won't be easy to get this out of Xiao Rojin's mouth. Whether it was the Shao family or not, Xiao Rojin would never admit it. Then we'll need eldest senior brother and Hao Miao's help. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. The night was enchanting. Wang Yanhan returned to the Raging Flames sect, reeking of alcohol. He happened to run into Xiao Rojin on the way, so he immediately rushed over and blocked her way. Xiao Rojin looked at the person who suddenly blocked her way, and her expression turned cold. She said, "Wang Yanhan, what are you doing?" Wang Yanhan looked at Xiao Rojin with drunken and hazy eyes, but his expression was full of hatred. "Xiao Rojin, if you didn't call everyone back, my junior brothers and sisters wouldn't have died. Tell me, were you the one who sent the assassin? You were worried that my junior sister would affect your position, so you deliberately sent the assassin to end them, right?" Wang Yanhan grabbed Xiao Rojin tightly with both hands, shook her body, and asked, "What enmity do they have with you? Why did you do this?" Chapter 45:23. They're already dead. Can't you tell me the truth? At the very least, let me know who killed them. Wang Yanhan's eyes reddened, his voice filled with anger and unwillingness. The surrounding disciples all stopped to watch after seeing this scene. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were also influential figures in the Raging Flame School. Everyone more or less knew how they died. Xiao Rojin's actions were indeed very suspicious, but no one expected Wang Yanhan to ask in public. In fact, many cultivators also felt that this matter was inseparable from Xiao Rojin. Bailey Hongzhuang's attribute talent was really too strong, threatening Xiao Rojin's position. Moreover, with the Xiao family's means, they could indeed send such an expert. Noticing the attention of the surrounding people, Xiao Rojin's expression became increasingly unsightly. "You lunatic, they're already dead. What's the point of saying this?" Xiao Rojin's expression was cold. "I didn't do anything at that time. Everyone saw it clearly. If you continue to block me, don't blame me for being impolite." As soon as she finished speaking, Xiao Rojin pushed Wang Yanhan to the side with all the origin energy in her body and quickly left. After Xiao Rojin left, Wang Yanhan stood up with Yi Haomiao's help. Looking at Xiao Rojin's departing figure, a dim light surged in their eyes. Little junior sister and the others are already waiting at Xiao Rojin's residence. Our mission has been completed. Next, it's up to them, Wang Yanhan slowly said. Yi Haomiao nodded slightly. They didn't expect Xiao Rojin to tell the truth under such circumstances. However, after such a thing happened, Xiao Rojin would definitely think about it when she returned, and they would also know. As the only light attribute cultivator in the Raging Flame School, and with the Xiao family as her backing, Xiao Rojin's position in the Raging Flame School was incomparable to that of other cultivators. Therefore, she lived alone. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were waiting for Xiao Rojin's return on the roof. Not long after, Xiao Rojin angrily returned. "Miss, what's wrong with you?" The maid looked at Xiao Rojin's angry appearance and couldn't help but ask after pouring a cup of water. Xiao Rojin drank the tea in one gulp, then heavily placed the teacup on the table. Only then did she angrily say, "That Wang Yanhan is simply a lunatic. He actually stopped me in front of so many people and questioned me if I killed Bailey Hongzhuang. The maid was clearly shocked by this situation. Wan Yanhan is too daring. Even if they were really sent by the family people to take care of them, so what? Could it be that Wan Yanhan would take revenge for them? He really overestimated himself. He drank too much alcohol's crazy. Xiao Rojin's eyes were filled with disgust. Speaking of which, the situation last time was indeed a bit strange. Although I sent the news of Bailey Hongzhuang back to the family, I didn't receive a reply. If it was really the family people who took action, then the family speed is too fast, isn't it? That Bailey Hongzhuang's talent is astonishing. She's a threat to the main family's eldest young miss who is going to become the Holy Maiden of Light. It's not strange for the family to do this. Alas, Xiao Rojin sighed. The family's decision is not something we can know. However, this Bailey Hongzhuang's death is very much to my liking. She's an eyesore. Chapter 45-24. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun, who were on the roof, saw everything in the room. The two of them looked at each other. They probably wouldn't be able to hear any more useful news, so they immediately left Xiao Rojin's residence. It seems that Xiao Rojin isn't sure if this was done by the Xiao family. The only thing I can be sure of is that the Xiao family doesn't have any good intentions towards me. Bailey Hongzhuang spread out her hands. In fact, when she knew that the eldest daughter of the Xiao family was planning to inherit the position of the Holy Maiden of Light, she had already expected such a situation. After all, she was a cultivator from the lower realm with no foundation. Her talent actually threatened the eldest daughter of a top family. From the family's point of view, naturally, they would not hesitate to choose to wipe out an ant like her. Di Beichun's face darkened. No matter who it was, as long as they dare to have killing intent towards his wife, they deserve to die. This Xiao family isn't anything good either. Their young lady isn't qualified to inherit the position of the Holy Maiden of Light, but they insist on doing so. They even want to wipe out all threats. The deep voice was cold and ruthless. Even though the Xiao family was an existence that they needed to look up to at the moment, he still believed that as their power increased, all of this would not be a problem. Inside the room, when Serene and the others had been waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang and A.O. Lingxiao to return so that they could know the final result. When they heard the footsteps of the two, they hurriedly opened the door and asked, "How is it? Was it done by the Xiao family?" Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Xiao Rojin herself isn't sure. She's just a branch disciple of the Xiao family and doesn't have any status in the main family. This kind of thing isn't something that she can come into contact with. However, even if those assassins weren't sent by the Xiao family, I'm afraid that it won't be long before the Xiao family sends someone. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Mo Yunjue and the others' faces darkened. They didn't expect that they would already have an opponent like the Xiao family as soon as they came to the upper realm. Xiao Rojin's situation is like this. Why don't we confirm whether Gong Tianfeng is the murderer later? A.O. Lingxiao said with a frown. From Bailey Hongzhuang's description, he only felt that this matter was not as simple as it seemed. He always felt that there was a hand reaching out to them, but they still did not know where this hand came from. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. We'll see when the time comes. Ever since Di Xiaofeng received the letter from the Di family, he immediately rushed home. As soon as he arrived, he felt the heavy atmosphere in the family, and his heart immediately sank. Although the contents of the letter had been made clear, he was still unwilling to believe it on the way back. Her brother had been lost for so many years, and it was not easy to find news of him. She did not expect that he would be assassinated. What he found most difficult to accept was that the person who had plotted against Beichun was actually the housekeeper. Ever since he was young, he had always felt that the housekeeper was one of them. Who would have thought that the housekeeper would do such a thing? Di Xiaofeng immediately went to Lin Yunqing's residence. As soon as he entered, Di Xiaofeng saw Di Yujue's figure in the courtyard outside the house and immediately walked over. "Father." Seeing that Di Xiaofeng had returned, Di Yujue's eyes also lit up. "Xiaofeng, you're back." Chapter 45-25. However, ever since Bailey Shi's accident, he had been accompanying Bailey Yunyan in Shuiyun City. If he had returned to the family earlier and found out about this news, he would have been able to help when everyone was looking for Bachin. Things might not have developed to this point. Dugus sighed. His handsome face could not hide his grief. This time, I went to the lower realm and finally found Bachin. I never thought that Bachin would have come to the upper realm before me. After Di Yujue explained the ins and outs of the matter clearly, Di Xiaofeng finally understood. However, his expression became even uglier. Di Kaiyuan has gone too far. The Di family has been very good to him for so many years. He actually did something worse than a beast. What did second brother do wrong? He's simply not human to be so cruel and merciless. Di Xiaofeng's face was full of anger, and his eyes were slightly red. It was hard to guard against a thief in the family. Back then, they had always thought that someone was behind this matter. However, they had always thought that their target was the Di family's opponent. They never thought that the biggest problem would be within the family. Kaiyuan already understood all of this before he died. That's why he sought death on his own. Dugus sighed. Your mother was originally very happy when she heard that Bachin was coming back. Who would have thought that she would suffer such a blow now? Her mental state is very bad. You should go and see your mother first. Dugu's eyes were filled with grief and worry. It was not easy for the family to be reunited, but in the end, it was an illusion. They had rejoiced for nothing. Lin Yunqing had been very unhappy all these years because of this matter. She was depressed, and her health had gradually deteriorated. After this incident, she fell ill and could not recover. No matter how much he comforted her, it was useless. Looking at Lin Yunqing's increasingly pale face and increasingly thin body, his heart really ached. He had already invited the best doctor to take a look at her. Everyone said that it was a mental illness. If Lin Yunqing wanted to treat it, she had to figure out herself. Otherwise, there was no cure. As soon as Di Xiaofeng entered the room, he saw Lin Yunqing's thin and sickly appearance. His expression changed, and he quickly walked to Lin Yunqing's side. Mother, what happened to you? Lin Yunqing's eyes lit up when she saw Di Xiaofeng return. Xiaofeng, you're back. Di Xiaofeng nodded. Mother, I've heard about what happened to Bachin. We're all very sad about this, but you have to take care of your body. Hearing that, tears began to roll down from the corners of Lin Yunqing's eyes again. Her red and swollen eyes had clearly been filled with tears the past few days. Your brother's life is so hard. He hasn't used anything from the Di family for so many years, but he has to sacrifice his life for the Di family. Why is that? Di Xiaofeng sat beside Lin Yunqing and couldn't hide the sadness on his face. We all owe second brother. It wasn't until Di Xiaofeng came out of the room that he understood how bad Lin Yunqing's condition was when Di Yujue said it was. If she continued to be so depressed, he was afraid that Lin Yunqing would. Mother's health was already very bad. Now it's even worse. Di Xiaofeng sighed. Although he tried his best to persuade, it was obviously of no use. Even he found it hard to accept, let alone mother who had always been thinking about second brother. Chapter 45:26. I've already invited the best doctors over, but they're still at their wits' end. Di Yujue frowned, his bright eyes filled with worry. Bachin was already in trouble. He couldn't let anything happen to Yunqing. However, Lin Yunqing couldn't even eat right now. If this continued, how could she live? Hearing this, Di Xiaofeng thought of someone. Father, I met a godly doctor outside this time. I have a friend whose situation is similar to mother's. Something happened that she couldn't accept. She wanted to die, and all the doctors were helpless, but that godly doctor cured her. Now, that friend of mine is gradually getting better and doesn't want to die anymore. Di Xiaofeng was talking about Bailey Hongzhuang. Ever since he saw Bailey Hongzhuang's methods, he was extremely impressed. Bailey Hongzhuang also had a deep knot in her heart, but it was still untied by Bailey Hongzhuang. If he could find Bailey Hongzhuang, his mother's situation might improve. Oh, Di Yujue's eyes lit up. Who is it? Did she come this time? Di Xiaofeng shook his head. Although I met them, they still have their own matters to attend to, so they left first. Di Yujue's eyes flashed with a trace of disappointment. Then think of a way to find that godly doctor. Your mother's situation isn't optimistic. We can't let her continue like this. Yes, stay with your mother for this period of time. I'm going to Rome and City. Di Yujue instructed. Rome and City? Di Xiaofeng was stunned. Father, why are you going to Rome and City? According to what Di Kaiyuan said before he died, your brother died in Rome and City. Although it's unlikely that Di Kaiyuan would lie to us before he died, if I don't go there personally, I won't be satisfied. Di Yujue's eyes flashed with stubbornness and determination. Besides, even if it's true, I have to know the real situation at that time and find all the masterminds to avenge Beichun. Di Kaiyuan was indeed an important figure, but he wouldn't let go of anyone involved in this conspiracy. Father, you're right. At that time, everyone thought that Beichun couldn't be alive, but Beichun is still alive. This time, if we don't see it with our own eyes, we can't trust others like this. Di Xiaofeng nodded. However, I think it's better for you to stay here with Mother and let me go to Rome and City. Following Di Xiaofeng's voice, Di Xiaofeng's is Di Ses, and Di Xiaofeng's? Di Xiaofeng nodded. The godly doctor I'm talking about happens to be in Rome and City. If I can see her, I'll invite her to treat Mother. Di Yujue finally understood. What a coincidence. That's why I was very surprised when I heard Father mention Rome and City. I also wanted to have a chance to see them again, but I didn't expect it to be so soon. Di Yujue thought for a moment and nodded. Since you know them, then you can go to Rome and City. However, you must investigate Beichun's situation. Father, don't worry, I'll definitely find out. Chapter 45:27. Father, I came back this time to report something to you. Di Xiaofeng's expression was complicated. This matter had always been on his mind. He didn't send a letter before because he was worried that the secret might be leaked. After all, the housekeeper they trusted so much had betrayed the family. No one knew if there were other traitors in the family. If this news was spread, it would be even worse for their situation. Looking at Di Xiaofeng's solemn expression, Di Yujue also frowned. What is it? When I was in Watercloud City, I was also ambushed by a group of inexplicable black-clothed people. They obviously identified me as their target and used a killing move to take my life. They didn't leave me any leeway. Fortunately, my strength was good, and I used all my strength to escape their pursuit. Later, I was saved by someone. The godly doctor I mentioned was the person I saved. If it weren't for them, I'm afraid I might not have been able to come back. Di Xiaofeng's words were not exaggerated at all. The forest was full of danger. If he had been in a coma, it wouldn't have been long before he would have been torn to pieces by monsters or skeletons. Therefore, in his eyes, both Situ and Miss Lan had saved his life. Hearing Di Xiaofeng's words, Di Yujue's gaze suddenly froze. A strong, murderous aura spread out from his body, filled with anger. Damn it! It's not enough to make a move on Beichun. Now they want to make you their target. Di Xiaofeng didn't say much. In fact, his thoughts were the same as Di Yujue's. It was impossible for things to be so coincidental. It was obvious that someone had sent two groups of people. One group to attack Di Beichun, and the other to attack him. The goal was to get rid of the two brothers. These guys were really too vicious. They wanted to do things so decisively. Father, since the housekeeper died in front of you, why didn't he confess his accomplices? This was what Di Xiaofeng didn't understand the most. With such a hidden mastermind, they couldn't sleep or eat in peace. Kai Yuan suddenly committed suicide at that time, which was beyond our expectations. No one was able to stop him. I'm still investigating, but I already have a suspect in mind. Di Yujue's eyes darkened. Ever since he learned of this matter, he already had a vague suspect in his heart. It was just that no concrete evidence had been found so far. Who is it? Di Xiaofeng couldn't help but ask. Jun family. Di Yujue gritted his teeth as he said these two heavy words. Even though he didn't have any evidence, he felt that it couldn't be anyone else other than the Jun family. In his eyes, the Jun family had always been two-faced. They looked very friendly on the surface, but the things they did behind the scenes were far beyond one's imagination. The Di family had been oppressed by the Jun family all these years. So, they must have been extremely dissatisfied with the Jun family. Therefore, doing something that would harm the foundation of the D family would naturally be beneficial to them. As Di Yujue spoke, Di Xiaofeng's expression changed, and he calmed down. Father, your guess makes sense. You must be extra careful if you come across any members of the Jun family. Chapter 45:28. They usually act like they don't care, but we all know that this is just on the surface. Di Yujue thought for a moment and said, when you go to Rong and City this time, let the great elder go with you and bring a few guards. With them by your side, I can be more at ease. We just found out about Kai Yuan's matter. I believe that they won't dare to make a move on you so quickly. We have been investigating closely during this period of time. I believe that they will have some fear. However, you still have to be careful when you go out. Father, don't worry. I will definitely not let anything happen to me. Tell me in detail about the situation when you're being hunted down. I will send people to investigate from this aspect. Di Yujue's face was ashen. These damned bastards have been extending their claws to his son. He only had 2 sons in total. Beichen was very likely to have fallen by now, and those damned bastards have begun to make a move on Xiaofeng. If he did not catch these bastards as soon as possible, how could he relieve the hatred in his heart? All right. After Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun understood the situation from Xiao Rojin, they did not hesitate any longer. After all, the most important thing for them now was to increase their strength. Otherwise, even if they knew who their opponent was, they would not be able to take revenge if they did not have enough strength. Therefore, they gathered Xiren and the others and went to the forest world to train together. To them, the forest world was not only a good place to train, but also a good place to cultivate. In that place with dense vitality, using spirit stones to cultivate, the speed was definitely not comparable to ordinary places. When Xiren and Shangwan Yingying found out that it was no longer the ocean world, but the forest world, the two of them could not help but be surprised. The world inside can actually change? Shangwan Yingying found it hard to believe. When she first saw the ocean world, she was already shocked to the extreme. Bailey Hongzhuang's chaos ring was really too abnormal. It could actually appear in such a world on its own and allow them to cultivate. This was a good opportunity that ordinary people could not obtain. However, she didn't expect the scene inside to change. It was truly miraculous. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. The scenery inside will change as my strength increases, and so will the strength of the demonic beasts. I see. When Xiren immediately understood. If your strength has increased, but the strength of the demonic beast inside is still the same as before, it will naturally be of no use to you. Exactly. When Xiren and Shangwan Yingying had long known of the existence of this place, so it was fine. However, when Mo Yunjue and Ao Lingxiao saw the brand new world in front of them, they couldn't help but be stunned on the spot. Their hearts were in turmoil, and for a moment, they didn't know what to say. It was too shocking. This was completely beyond their imagination. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it at all. Mo Yunjue stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock. He had always known that Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation had increased so quickly because of her secret. In reality, every powerful cultivator had their own secret. However, he never thought that this secret would be so great. Chapter 45:29. If news of such a heaven-defying treasure were spread, it would definitely be fought over by many forces. Needless to say, with Bailey Hongzhuang's current strength, she would not be able to protect this treasure. Therefore, she should not be willing to tell anyone. However, he did not expect that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun would trust him so much that they would even tell him such a big secret. In fact, ever since he met Di Beichun, he was the one who really needed help. On the contrary, he did not help them much. Even so, they still treated him as one of their own. Now, they were even telling him such a big secret. It was only at this moment that he understood how much trust they had in him. An indescribable feeling spread in his heart. Humans were like this. The more sincere the other party was to him, the more sincere he would want to be to them. Since Bailey Hongzhuang and the others trusted him so much, he could not let them down. Otherwise, he would be too much of a jerk. Ever since such a big incident happened in his family, He could not even trust his own brother. However, here, he gained such trust and friendship. To him, nothing was more important than this. Thank you for sharing this secret with me. I swear, I will not tell anyone about this. Otherwise, I will be struck by lightning and never reincarnated. Ao Lingxiao's expression was serious and his voice was sincere. These were his heartfelt words. Although Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun had decided to let him come with them, which meant that they trusted him, he still had to explain his thoughts. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun looked at each other. It seemed that their judgment was not wrong. Ao Lingxiao was indeed a trustworthy person. Lingxiao, we all trust you. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Di Beichun also nodded. We are all good brothers. Originally, Ao Lingxiao had always felt that he was an outsider in this group. However, at this moment, that feeling disappeared without a trace. It turned out that no one had ever treated him as an outsider. An indescribable sense of belonging spread in his heart. Thank you. When Xiren and the others couldn't help but chuckle. Although they did believe in Ao Lingxiao's reaction at this moment made them believe that their judgment was correct. Just as they were talking, the three beasties had already rushed over. Master, you're back. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. It seems that you've been enjoying your stay here these past few days. Xiaohei hurriedly shook her head. Master, if you're not here, how can we live comfortably? Bailong could not help but shake his head speechlessly when he saw Xiaohei's bootlicking expression. Flattery will always work. As soon as he said that, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangwan Yingying couldn't help but burst into laughter. Xiaohei turned her head speechlessly. Even if she was flattering him, this white dragon didn't have to expose her directly, right? This guy's way of doing things was really arrogant. He didn't give her any face at all. Unfortunately, Bailong was not Xiao Xuanzi, who could be bullied at will. This guy's strength was strong, so Bailong could only hide. Therefore, even though she felt wronged, she could only swallow her anger. After hearing Bailong's words, Xiren and the others finally noticed Bailong's existence. A trace of surprise appeared in their eyes. Chapter 45:30. The white dragon was now in human form. She was dressed in a white dress. Her face was outstanding, cute, and very beautiful. Although the white dragon had lived for many years, she was still very young when compared to the long lifespan of the dragon clan. She might even be very young. Shangwan Yingying and the others all looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Before this, they had never heard of Bailey Hongzhuang being so familiar with a woman. Looking at everyone's blank faces, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but smile. Actually, she's not human. As soon as these words came out, everyone could not help but be stunned. Their eyes flashed with deep shock as they looked at the white dragon in bewilderment. It was really hard for them to imagine that such a beautiful woman was not human. Noticing everyone's gaze, the white dragon could not help but roll her eyes. I'm not human. I'm from the dragon clan. Xiren and the others breathed a sigh of relief, but then their eyes widened. Dragon clan? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Weren't you wondering why suddenly disappeared when we were in the darkness ruins? I went to see her. At that time, she was trapped in the ruins. Later, she recognized me as her master, and we came out together. At this time, everyone understood. I didn't expect her to be from the dragon clan. Shangwan Yingying's face was full of surprise. Although I've heard of the legends of the dragon clan, I didn't expect to see a real dragon clan one day. Thinking of this, Shangwan Yingying could not help but feel excited. The dragon clan was not something that anyone could meet. Although the dragon clan was very powerful, they were very few in number. Most of them lived in places that humans could not reach, so it was very difficult to meet a dragon clan member. Hongzhuang, this dragon clan girl can already transform into a human form. She must be very strong, right? Xiren slowly said. Although it was a question, he was very sure. Only when a monster beast reached a certain level of strength could they transform into a human form. None of the demonic beasts that could transform into human form were simple. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Back then, I was ambushed by a cultivator from the Crimson Moon sect. If the white dragon had not saved me and brought me to the upper realm, I would have died back then. If this kind of thing happened to someone else, everyone would feel that it was unbelievable. However, this kind of thing happened to Bailey Hongzhuang, so everyone was a lot calmer. After all, many unbelievable things had happened to Bailey Hongzhuang. Usually, a cultivator could only contract with one beast, but for Bailey Hongzhuang, this was not a problem at all. Hongzhuang, I didn't expect a dragon to become your contracted beast. You're really amazing. Shangguan Yingying held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand, her pretty face filled with pride. Although the owner of this matter was not her, she was very happy that her good friend could have such an opportunity. Ao Lingxiao did not know what to say at this moment. As expected, Bailey Hongzhuang was a person with a great opportunity. Not only did she obtain such a heaven-defying divine weapon, but even the Dragon Clan recognized her as their master. Her future achievements would be limitless. The White Dragon saw that everyone was talking about this matter. Although it was one of the main characters, it felt that it had nothing to do with it. It immediately prepared to go back and continue to cultivate. Chapter 45:31. Now that she had finally arrived at a place with rich spiritual energy, she naturally had to seize the time to cultivate. Moreover, her memory was severely damaged. She only hoped that she could regain her memories as soon as possible. Otherwise, she would feel extremely uncomfortable. However, just as Bai Long was about to turn around and cultivate, Shangguan Yingying came to Bai Long's side. Shangguan Yingying had a flattering smile on her face. She rubbed her hands and looked like she wanted to say something but stopped herself. Bai Long could not help but frown when he saw Shangguan Yingying's expression. He did not know why, but this expression gave him an ominous feeling. Bai Long, Shangguan Yingying slowly said, I've lived for so long and have only heard of the Dragon Clan and legends. I've never seen a real dragon god. As soon as she said that, the White Dragon understood what she meant. Not only Shangguan Yingying, but when Xiren and the others also looked curious. They had always thought that the Dragon Clan was a legendary existence and had never seen their real appearance. If they had the chance, they would really like to see it. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichun looked at each other. They should have expected this situation. Bai Long, if you don't mind, show your real body and let them see. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. If you don't want to, then forget it. They will have the chance to see it in the future. Bai Long felt helpless when he heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words. She meant that even if she did not want to let them see her now, they would see her sooner or later. So why not just let them see her now? Although he could not help but complain in his heart, Bai Long still chose to agree. Bailey Hongzhuang was right. She was Bailey Hongzhuang's contracted beast and would naturally follow her. Sooner or later, everyone would see her real body. Moreover, there was nothing that they could not see. All right, in the next moment, Bai Long transformed into her real body and appeared in front of everyone. When the crowd looked at the incomparably huge and exquisite body in front of them, they all felt a sense of shock in their hearts. His true body was dozens of feet long. Standing before this huge dragon, they were simply too small. The dragon's scales reflected a tough and resplendent luster under the sunlight. The smooth lines were graceful and full of power, just like a work of art. The aura exuded by the Dragon Clan was extremely powerful. Even with their current cultivation, they felt a sense of suffocation when they got close. They all took a few steps back. This was the majesty of the Dragon Clan. So this is the Dragon Clan. How shocking! Shangguan Yingying exclaimed. That's right. When I heard about it in the past, I thought that it might be an exaggeration. Now that I've seen it with my own eyes, I feel that what they said is not exaggerated at all. On the contrary, it might be too simple. Ao Lingxiao revealed an amazed expression. No wonder the dragon race had an irreplaceable status among monster beasts. Such monster beasts were indeed peak existences. A moment later, the white dragon returned to its human form. Although she was very satisfied with her image, she was still not used to being stared at like this by everyone. I'll go cultivate first. As she spoke, Bai Long had already moved to the side. She was worried that Shangguan Yingying would make some inexplicable request. Seeing this, Shangguan Yingying could not help but feel a little disappointed. She wanted to know more about the Dragon Clan. Chapter 45:32. When the beasts in the forest world sensed that the Chilean lion's aura had disappeared for many days, many of them became restless and wanted to go in and check it out. After all, the Chilean lion had occupied an extremely good territory. Not only did it have an abundance of vital energy, the environment was beautiful, and most importantly, it had the purple dream lotus. Normally, the Chilean lion would release its aura every once in a while. Hence, the other beasts did not dare to go near it. However, in recent days, there had been no sign of its aura. Furthermore, they all knew that the Chilean lion had been severely injured after a huge battle. Everyone was hoping that it had fallen. Just as some of the beasts were about to go near the Chilean lion's territory, a strong aura of the dragon clan could be felt. Instantly, all the beasts stopped in their tracks and trembled. The Chilean lion was already an overlord among them. Who would have thought that a dragon clan member would appear? Who would dare to go near it? Wouldn't that be courting death? In an instant, all the beasts who had the intention to go and retreated. They treated the Chilean lion's territory as a forbidden place. In the following days, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others began to cultivate in seclusion in the forest world. The scenery was beautiful and the vital energy was dense. It was also very safe. It was much better than cultivating in the Green Dragon sect. If they wanted to find some opponents, all they had to do was to look for beasts to practice their skills. However, they obviously did not have such thoughts at the moment. After all, they had just arrived in the upper realm. Increasing their strength was the most important thing. After cultivating in seclusion for a month, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others finally came out of the Chaos Ring. It was good to cultivate in the forest world. However, they had not come out for so many days. It was inevitable that people would be suspicious. Hence, it was necessary for them to come out and walk around occasionally. Then we'll go to the guild first. When Xiren, Shangwan Yingying, Ao Lingxiao, and Mo Yunjue walked out together. Although they had already obtained the method of cultivation, there were still some things that they needed to do in the guild. You guys go ahead. After everyone left, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun looked at each other. Both of them were amused. Di Beichun didn't have a dark guild, so he didn't need to go. As for Bailey Hongzhuang, although she had a Radiant Sacred Assembly, it wasn't a good place for her to go. She did have the identity card of the Radiant Sacred Assembly, but if she took it out, the people of the Radiant Sacred Assembly would recognize her. If she did not take out her identity card, the Holy Light Assembly would definitely make her go through the talent test again. After all, one's attributes could not be determined by words alone. With the Radiant Sacred Assembly's position in the Shengxian continent, there would definitely be many cultivators who wanted to call themselves members of the Radiant Sacred Assembly. Therefore, it was obvious that their confirmation process would be very strict. Under such circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang had no way of entering. It's rare for us to come out. Let's go out for a walk. We'll find a place to sell these pills and exchange them for some spiritual stones. Then, we'll buy some high-grade spiritual herbs. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a smile. She had refined a lot of dam before. Rome and city was also a very big city. It could be said that everything was available here. Chapter 45-33. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichun also nodded. Now that they were all trying their best to improve their cultivation, the consumption of cultivation resources could be said to be extremely fast. Although there were still some spirit stones left, there were not many left. It would not be long before all of them were used up. Exchanging them for more cultivation resources was also extremely important for them now. After making preparations, the two of them walked out of the Azure Dragon Gate together. Di Beichun, although there's also an auction in Rome and city, it is said that the process is quite complicated. Why don't we go directly to Danbao Pavilion to take a look? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and looked at Di Beichun. I heard Senior Brother Wan Yen say that this Danbao Pavilion is not bad, and they have connections with the auction. The price will not be bad. She was very familiar with the pills she took out this time. Although they were still in high demand, these pills might not be able to enter a large-scale auction based on the foundation of the upper realm. In that case, it would be better to sell them directly and save them the trouble. Okay, Di Beichun replied. He had heard of Danbao Pavilion before. Its reputation in Rome and city could be said to be very good. The two of them walked all the way to Dambao Pavilion. Dambao Pavilion was located in the center of Rome, and city, and was very close to the Holy Light Assembly. When Bailey Hongzhuang went to the Holy Light Assembly, she often passed by Dambao Pavilion. The magnificent building revealed its aura and foundation. Anyone who could afford to open a shop like Dambao Pavilion must have a lot of confidence. After all, it was impossible to recruit a powerful alchemist without enough foundation. Not long after, the two of them arrived at Dambao Pavilion. However, as soon as they walked into Dambao Pavilion, Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichun found that there were many acquaintances here. Wang Yanhan, Yi Haomiao, and Wang Yanling were all there, and the other person was Xiao Rojin. However, judging from the atmosphere, it did not seem to be very good. Seeing your brother Wang Yan, Bailey Hongzhuang called out softly. She noticed that Wang Yanhan's face was ashen, and his eyes were filled with anger and killing intent. The target of this anger was obviously Xiao Rojin. Looking at the situation, Wang Yanhan probably had a conflict with Xiao Rojin. Suddenly hearing this familiar voice, Wang Yanhan couldn't help but turn his head. When he saw Bailey Hongzhuang, he was a little surprised. Junior's sister Lan. Wang Yanhan's heart skipped a beat. He was used to calling her junior sister. At this moment, he almost blurted it out. Xiao Rojin's gaze also fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. She couldn't help but think of the words that Wang Yanhan had almost blurted out. Small what? Little junior sister? Xiao Rojin immediately thought of this name. Wang Yanhan had always called Bailey Hongzhuang that way. Then he thought about the man and woman in front of him. If Bailey Hongzhuang were still alive, with his Xiao Rojin's gaze kept sizing up Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichun, trying to find some clues. However, their expressions were normal, and she couldn't see where they had disguised themselves. This made her dispel her suspicions. Seeing your brother Wang Yan, what happened? Deep Beichun took a step forward and walked to Wang Yanhan's side. Hearing this, the anger in Wang Yanhan's heart surged again. He clenched his hands into fists and then weakly released them. He was a cultivator from the lower realm. He had no foundation and no spirit stones. What could he use to compete with Xiao Rojin? Chapter 45-34. Looking at Wang Yanhan's disappointed expression, Yi Haomiao couldn't take it lying down. Xiao Rojin, we were the ones who said we wanted to buy this divine light pill first. You're doing this on purpose. Yi Haomiao glared at Xiao Rojin. He hated this woman more and more. She looked gentle and pleasant on the surface, but she was more vicious than anyone else in her heart. However, Xiao Rojin didn't care about Yi Haomiao's angry words at all. On the contrary, the smile on her face became even more brilliant and proud. So what if I'm going against you on purpose? There's only one divine light pill here. The highest bidder gets it. You can't afford it, so don't tell me you won't let me buy it. You're blaming others because you can't afford it. If this gets out, people will laugh their heads off. Xiao Rojin chuckled. Anger and hatred flickered in the depths of her eyes. She had been unhappy with these guys for a long time. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang had joined the Raging Flame School because of them. They had already caused her a lot of trouble. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang had died, Wang Yanhan actually made a scene with her. How hateful. After Wang Yanhan got drunk and caused trouble, she clearly felt that many people had linked Bailey Hongzhuang's death to her. One had to know that she had always been praised by everyone in the Raging Flame School. Now, her credibility was clearly much weaker than before. And the root of all this was Wang Yanhan and these annoying guys. She happened to pass by the Pill Treasure Pavilion today and saw Wang Yanhan and the others here. Naturally, she wanted to find a way to make them unhappy. She happened to see Wang Yanhan wanting to buy a divine light pill. If a cultivator wanted to break through from the Starlight Realm to the Starlight Realm, other than cultivating naturally, most cultivators needed the help of pills to advance. In Rome, in city, Starlight Realm cultivators were the most common. Therefore, the divine light pill had always been in high demand. Even the Pill Treasure Pavilion only had one divine light pill left. In any case, there was no harm in buying it. She was naturally happy to make Wang Yanhan and the others unhappy. Wang Yanhan looked at Xiao Rojin angrily. In terms of wealth, he was indeed inferior to Xiao Rojin. To be honest, The amount of spiritual stones he received from the House of Flames wasn't even enough for his monthly cultivation. He had been very frugal these past few years, which was why he had saved up some spiritual stones to buy this cattail light pill. He had even borrowed a little from Yi Haomiao, which happened to be the price of the Pu Guang pill. Not to mention that Xiao Rojin was rich and imposing. He couldn't even take out one more spirit stone. "Let's go," Wang Yanhan said. Since he had no fate with this Pu Guang pill, he might as well leave as soon as possible so that he wouldn't be humiliated by Xiao Rojin here. Listening to the conversation between Yi Haomiao and Xiao Rojin, Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Haomiao finally understood that Xiao Rojin was taking advantage of her position to bully others and deliberately snatched Wang Yanhan's Pu Guang pill. "Isn't it just a Pu Guang pill? What's the big deal? Why is this woman so proud of herself?" Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a mocking sneer. In the past, she didn't see eye to eye with Xiao Rojin, so there was no need to mention it now. Xiao Rojin looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, but didn't take her words to heart, saying the grapes are sour when you can't afford them. Why do I feel a sense of poverty? Chapter 45-35. Xiao Rojin, it's fine if you're targeting me, but don't bite everyone you see like a mad dog. Wang Yanhan looked at Xiao Rojin angrily. His bloodshot eyes made one's heart tremble. He was indeed very poor. Ever since he came to the upper realm, only he knew how hard he had worked to get to where he was today. However, Xiao Rojin's actions today had undoubtedly trampled on his dignity. Even if he was very poor, he was still a person with a backbone. Because of this matter, Xiao Rojin had mocked him, and he indeed could not refute it. However, if she mocked his friends because of this matter, he would not tolerate it. Xiao Rojin looked at Wang Yanhan's serious appearance and could not help but be stunned for a moment. However, when she came back to her senses, her ridicule did not decrease. She was a member of the Xiao family. Even if Wang Yanhan had some status in the Blazing Flames sect, he could not threaten her at all. This guy dared to do such a thing without caring about her face. Would she care about his self-esteem? She just wanted to ruthlessly trample on him. "You cultivators from the lower realms have always been inferior. I really can't bear to look at your poor and destitute appearance." Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang glanced coldly at Xiao Rojin. "You just bought a Pu Guang pill, and you've been showing off here for so long. Speaking of which, you should be the poor one, right? You have the nerve to show off here with such little things? What a joke." Just as Xiao Rojin was about to refute Bailey Hongzhuang, a white porcelain bottle suddenly appeared in Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. "Open your dog eyes and look carefully. This is a bottle of Pu Guang pills, not one." As Bailey Hongzhuang opened the bottle cap, Xiao Rojin also saw the situation in the porcelain bottle clearly. Sure enough, there were 12 Pu Guang pills. After seeing this scene, the eyes of the shopkeeper of the pill and treasure pavilion also shone brightly. Pu Guang pill. It really is a Pu Guang pill. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's movements did not stop there. Bottle after bottle of pills were taken out by her. Pu Guang pill, spirit recovery pill, Yuan Qing pill. In a short time, dozens of white porcelain bottles were taken out by Bailey Hongzhuang and placed on the counter. "Look carefully. Cultivators from the lower realms like us really don't care about your cattail light pill at all. As for you, you've only bought a single pill, and you're already so arrogant. You should know very well who's the poor one here." Bailey Hongzhuang naturally knew that the reason why Xiao Rojin was so against Wang Yanhan was mostly because of them. She definitely could not watch her good friend endure such humiliation because of her. Since Xiao Rojin liked to humiliate people so much, then she would humiliate her back. As soon as Bailey Hongzhuang took out the entire bottle of Pu Guang pills, Xiao Rojin's expression changed. Although she could afford the Pu Guangdan, she couldn't afford an entire bottle of Pu Guangdan. Even though she was a member of the Xiao family, she was only a member of a branch family and had come to the Raging Flames sect to cultivate. In fact, she did not have many resources on hand. She was only slightly wealthier than ordinary cultivators. However, she never would have thought that this cultivator from the lower realms would take out so many pills in such a short time. This was too terrifying. At this moment, she had already forgotten how embarrassing her situation was. Her mind was filled with the feeling that everything in front of her could not be real. Chapter 45:36. At this moment, Wang Yanhan was so shocked that he couldn't speak. He had used up all his money in order to buy a cattail light pill. However, his little junior sister took out so many pills at once. How'd she do it? He could guarantee that none of the cultivators in the Raging Flame sect were as rich as Bailey Hongzhuang. There were so many pills, and each of them was a pill that they desperately needed. Because the sales were too tight, even if they had spirit stones, they often couldn't buy them on normal days. Now, Bailey Hongzhuang took out a whole bottle, and there were dozens of bottles in front of him. This was too shocking. The shopkeeper of the Dambao Pavilion was also dumbfounded at this moment. Their Dambao Pavilion's pills had always been relatively complete in Rome and City, but the number of pills each time could not be compared to those that Bailey Hongzhuang took out. Just the pills that Bailey Hongzhuang took out were enough to open a pill shop in Rome and City. Was this a cultivator from the lower world? Who would believe it? At this moment, he also felt that Xiao Rojin was showing off in front of an expert. She was simply asking for humiliation. Impossible. These medicinal pills of yours must be fake. Xiao Rojin was also angry at this moment. She didn't believe that a cultivator from the lower world would have such a foundation. However, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't be bothered to pay attention to Xiao Rojin. The shopkeeper of the Dambao Pavilion is right here. Can't he tell whether it's real or fake? If you like to deceive yourself, then comfort yourself like this. You're a frog at the bottom of a well, but you think that others are the same. How ridiculous! After saying this coldly, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Wang Yanhan and the others and said, "Senior brother Wang Yan, let's go. Don't pay attention to this kind of person. She will lower your standards." How could Yi Hao Miao and the others feel good at this moment? Previously, they couldn't refute Xiao Rojin's ridicule at all. They didn't expect the situation to turn around in the end. Looking at Xiao Rojin's ashen face and not knowing what to say, he felt a burst of joy. Even after walking out of the Dambao Pavilion, Wang Yanhan was still in shock. Yi Hao Miao, on the other hand, was a straightforward person. Previously, he had been so sullen that he was about to die. Now he was completely carefree. Noticing Deep Beichun beside Bailey Hongzhuang, he couldn't help but ask, "Beichun, why didn't you say anything in that situation just now?" Deep Beichun chuckled. "My wife can handle this kind of thing. I don't need to do anything." If it was any other matter, he might still be a little worried. However, when it came to pills, there was no need to worry at all. Competing with an outstanding alchemist to see who had more medicinal pills. Wasn't this courting death? Yi Hao Miao couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Although it's just a simple sentence, I can still hear the hint of a public display of affection. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Hao Miao, if you feel lonely, why don't you find a Taoist companion early, so that we can see your public display of affection? Just you wait. Sooner or later, there will be such a day," Yi Hao Miao said, unconvinced. After Wang Yanhan came back to his senses, he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and asked, "Junior sister, how do you have so many medicinal pills?" Chapter 45:37. Wang Yanhan was stunned. "Aren't you an inscription master? These two are actually my identities." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. However, after listening to the conversation between Wang Yanhan and Bailey Hongzhuang, Wang Yanling couldn't help but frown. "Junior sister Bailey, are you still an inscription master? But I clearly remember that you are a doctor." Wang Yanhan and Yi Hao Miao exclaimed again. They were already confused. Now that they heard Wang Yanling's words, they were even more confused. In fact, they didn't cultivate with Bailey Hongzhuang in Plunlai Palace. Only Wang Yanling understood Bailey Hongzhuang's situation the best. Di Beichen looked at Wang Yanhan and the others who were getting more and more confused. He couldn't help but smile playfully. His wife's ability was indeed too heaven-defying. Many cultivators wouldn't believe it if it was spread out. Ahem. Bailey Hongzhuang coughed dryly. She had forgotten that Wang Yanling knew this. She could only spread her hands helplessly. "Actually, these three are all my identities." Wang Yanhan and the others stared blankly at Bailey Hongzhuang. After receiving her confirmation, they didn't know what to say anymore. They had already seen Bailey Hongzhuang's attainments in inscription techniques. If it wasn't for her help, Wang Yanhan wouldn't have been able to improve his weapon and wouldn't have such a status in the Raging Flames sect. As for her alchemy skills, they didn't doubt it at all. No matter what kind of elixir Bailey Hongzhuang took out, it wasn't a low-grade elixir. On the contrary, there were very few alchemists who could refine such elixirs. They didn't know much about Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills, but they didn't take it to heart. After all, an alchemist was also a doctor to a certain extent. It was just that there was a gap between them and a pure doctor. However, Wang Yanling thought differently. He knew how outstanding Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills were. Because of Bailey Hongzhuang, Penglai Palace's status in Penglai Island was raised again. Junior sister, I didn't expect you to be so talented at such a young age. I really admire you. Wang Yanhan cupped his hands. At this moment, he didn't know how to express his amazement and admiration. It was already amazing that Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation could reach such a cultivation at such a young age. He didn't expect her to not only cultivate but also learn inscription techniques, alchemy, and even medical skills at the same time. Not only cultivate, but she also learned inscription techniques in alchemy and medicine at the same time. If SDS cultivations, Shihan Hanza, this even more amazing skill. Was in T est. Link T ordinary peoples. Hongzhuang, you've hidden your strength too deeply. I've never seen such a powerful cultivator like you. It's my honor to be your friend. A joyful smile appeared on Yi Haomiao's face. He also felt proud that his friend was so powerful. Senior brother Wang Yan, do you need light elixir? Bailey Hongzhuang took out a white porcelain bottle and handed it to Wang Yanhan. This elixir is for you. It should be helpful to you. From Wang Yanhan's performance in Dambao Pavilion, it could be seen that he was embarrassingly short of money. It was really difficult for him to buy the elixirs he needed. Presumably, these spirit stones were saved. Chapter 45-38. Although Bailey Hongzhuang was an alchemist, and this pill was much easier for her to make, the value of the pill was still there. He couldn't accept it without doing anything. Eldest senior brother, with our relationship, why are you so polite? Little junior sister, this pill is very precious. I haven't been able to help you all this time. How can I accept your things? Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang said helplessly, if you say so, my life is saved by you. Are these pills more valuable than my life? As she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang directly stuffed the white porcelain bottle into Wang Yanhan's hand. These pills are nothing to me. I have as many as I want. Since we are brothers and sisters, we naturally have to help each other. If you are so polite with me, you're treating me as an outsider. At this time, Deep Beichun also said, Senior brother Wang Yan, just accept it. When Hongzhuang refined the pills, she prepared some for you. Both he and Bailey Hongzhuang knew very well that the Raging Flame School's resources were not enough to support Wang Yanhan's cultivation. If he wanted to break through, this pill was unavoidable. Although they hadn't known Wang Yanhan and the others for a long time, friendship was never measured by time. Seeing this, Wang Yanhan looked at the white porcelain bottle in his hand, then looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichun, and said, then I'll accept it. He didn't say thank you because he knew that this was not something that could be expressed with just a word of thanks. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang and Wang Yanhan needed him in the future, he would definitely not refuse. Bailey Hongzhuang finally showed a satisfied smile. She immediately took out 2 identical white porcelain bottles and handed them to Yi Haomiao and Wang Yanling. I prepared this for you before. I planned to give it to you when I asked you out tonight. I didn't expect to meet you so early. Xiao Rojin looked at the backs of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others as they left and felt a surge of anger rush to her head. She had lived for so long and had never been so humiliated that she couldn't say a word. However, she really didn't have the ability to refute. The pills that Bailey Hongzhuang took out made even her extremely envious. Normally, the family couldn't give her much resources. Even with the Raging Flame School's resources, she still didn't have much on hand. However, she didn't expect these cultivators from the lower realm to be even richer than her. So many medicinal pills. What kind of wealth was that? Xiao Rojin couldn't help but think that if she could snatch these pills, she was confident that she could break through to the Starlight Realm in a short period of time. She believed that her aptitude wasn't bad. She didn't have enough resources. Greed and covetousness continued to rise in Xiao Rojin's heart. She must snatch these pills back. Thinking of this, Xiao Rojin immediately took action. Bailey Hongshuang's group of 5 walked on the street. Wang Yanhan originally planned to buy pills. Now that he had the pills, he naturally didn't have anything else to do. As for Bailey Hongshuang and Di Beichun, they originally planned to sell pills at the Dambao Pavilion. However, after this incident, they didn't have a good impression of the Dambao Pavilion. If the Dambao Pavilion was really a shop with principles, it would naturally be first come, first served. However, they clearly didn't realize this, so they still decided to sell it at the auction. Chapter 45:39. However, just as Bailey Hongshuang and the others were about to enter the auction house, a familiar and sharp voice suddenly rang out behind them. "It's them. They stole my pills." Bailey Hongshuang and the others couldn't help but turn around when they heard this. They saw Xiao Rojin quickly rushing over. Standing beside her were the disciples of the Raging Flame School who usually held her in high esteem. "Seeing your sister Xiao, you're saying Wang Yanhan and the others stole your pills?" Xiao Rojin nodded. Her bright eyes were filled with anger and disgust. "Ever since Bailey Hongshuang and Di Beichun died, this Wang Yanhan has always been looking for trouble with me. Actually, his goal isn't to avenge his juniors at all. He just wants to get some benefits from me. A few days ago, I just received a lot of cultivation resources from the clan. I didn't expect Wang Yanhan to steal them. How hateful." Xiao Rojin's voice was extremely loud. At this moment, they were on a crowded street. In almost a short time, the surrounding pedestrians were all attracted over. As the only light attribute cultivator in the Raging Flame School, Xiao Rojin's reputation was quite resounding. When she spoke at this moment, many people recognized her. As for Wang Yanhan, there were also many cultivators who knew him. However, his reputation couldn't be compared to Xiao Rojin's. Xiao Rojin was a cultivator of the Xiao clan, while Wang Yanhan was only a cultivator from the lower realm. When Xiao Rojin said this, almost no one doubted her. Everyone was certain that this was definitely Wang Yanhan's doing. Cultivators from the lower realm don't have much background. I can understand that they lack cultivation resources. However, I didn't expect them to steal. What's so strange about that? In order to increase their cultivation, what wouldn't they do? Now that Xiao Rojin has exposed it, Wang Yanhan's reputation is probably ruined. It will be very difficult for him to establish himself in the Raging Flame School in the future. Everyone shook their heads. Stealing cultivation resources was a common occurrence in the upper realm. However, not only had Wang Yanhan been discovered, but he had also been pointed out by his fellow disciples on the spot. This meant that there was no turning back for this matter. Bailey Hongshuang and the others didn't expect that Xiao Rojin would come out and find such a funny excuse, but so many people believed it. "Xiao Rojin, your ability to lie through your teeth is really amazing." Bailey Hongshuang couldn't help but sigh. Because this woman coveted his medicinal pills, she actually splashed a basin of dirty water on them. However, that righteous indignation look was still impeccable. It was really admirable. "I'm telling the truth. It's impossible for you guys from the lower realms to have so many pills. All the pills are cultivation resources given to me by my family." Xiao Rojin's expression did not change. She had already made up her mind. As long as she insisted, no matter how Wang Yanhan and the others tried to defend themselves, it would be useless. After all, in Roman City, her trust was much stronger than Wang Yanhan and the others. "Xiao Rojin, stop slandering me." Wang Yanhan's anger rose. He really didn't expect Xiao Rojin to be so despicable. "You know very well who's slandering you." Xiao Rojin snorted coldly. "Who doesn't know that you, Wang Yanhan, have always wanted to buy a divine light pill? However, you haven't been able to gather it for so long. You know that there's a divine light pill among the cultivation resources given to me by my family, so you have evil thoughts." Chapter 45:40. When Bailey Hongshuang and the others heard that Xiao Rojin actually asked Wang Yanhan to cut off one of his arms, their faces all darkened. They didn't expect Xiao Rojin to be so vicious. Not only did she greedily want to take the cultivation resources from them, she even wanted to cripple Wang Yanhan's arm. If Bailey Hongzhuang didn't intend to take Xiao Rojin's life before, then now, she wanted to kill her. When Di Beichen noticed the change in Bailey Hongzhuang's expression, he already understood her thoughts. In fact, his thoughts were the same as Bailey Hongzhuang's. This woman was so vicious. If Wang Yanhan continued to stay in the Raging Flame School, he would sooner or later suffer a great loss in Xiao Rojin's hands. Although there was originally a little room for reconciliation, it was obviously gone now. Xiao Rojin, you're too vicious. Wang Yanling looked at Xiao Rojin with disgust. He had just joined the Raging Flame School not long ago and knew that this woman was always finding trouble with his elder brother. However, he didn't expect this woman to be so excessive as to make such a request. I'm already being very tolerant. Xiao Rojin's eyes were full of disdain. If I directly tell this to Steward Wu, what kind of punishment do you think will you receive? Do you think you can still stay in the Raging Flame School? She wanted to drive Wang Yanhan and the others out so that they would have no place in Rowan City. As long as Wang Yanhan was driven out by the Raging Flame School, no matter if it was the Azure Dragon School or other forces, they would not take her in. Since they had offended her, they definitely wouldn't have a good ending. Wang Yanhan and the others' hearts sank. If they couldn't explain this matter clearly, they were afraid that they really wouldn't be able to stay in the Raging Flame School. It was obvious that once this name was confirmed, what kind of eyes would people use to look at them in the future? Even if the Raging Flame School didn't drive them out, they couldn't continue to stay. Xiao Rojin's move was really vicious. Xiao Rojin, what right do you have to say that these pills are yours? Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. This woman was really full of drama. Do I need proof? Xiao Rojin retorted, I'm a cultivator of the Xiao family. Can you cultivators from the lower realm compare me? As long as I stand here, I am the truth. Looking at Xiao Rojin's arrogant appearance, Yi Haomiao couldn't help but say, don't flatter yourself. Aren't you just a branch family member? You're always putting on airs all day long. Don't tell me you think you're the young miss of the main house. As soon as these words were spoken, Xiao Rojin's expression immediately darkened. Indeed, she had always been using the name of the Xiao family. Everyone actually knew that she was just a member of a branch family. However, she still felt very unhappy to be directly exposed like this. My wife is an alchemist, and these pills were refined by her. Do you think an alchemist is rich, or a cultivator from a branch family like you is rich? Di Beichen's eyes, which were as deep as the sea, flashed with a cold light. His deep voice was full of disgust, and the meaning of his words directly refuted everything Xiao Rojin had said before. Alchemist. When everyone heard that Bailey Hongzhuang was actually an alchemist, their expressions all changed. What did alchemists have the most? Naturally, it was pills. Chapter 45-41. When Xiao Rojin heard that Bailey Hongzhuang was a pill refiner, her expression changed. Pill refiner? This woman from the lower realm was actually a pill refiner? She had never understood why Bailey Hongzhuang had so many pills. Until now, she finally understood. So this woman was actually a pill refiner. She could not believe that this woman from the lower realm had the identity of a pill refiner. One had to know that the higher one's cultivation, the fewer pill refiners there were, because most people had limited energy. Even in a place like the upper realm, as long as you had the identity of a pill refiner, you would be respected no matter where you were. Bailey Hongzhuang looked coldly at Xiao Rojin, then said to the surrounding cultivators, this woman coveted my pills, so she found such an excuse to frame us. Indeed, we are cultivators from the lower realm and have no background. But I'm a pill refiner. Isn't it normal for me to have pills? Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with a cold light, and her voice was loud and clear. Since Xiao Rojin wanted to make a big deal out of this, she would let everyone see what kind of face this woman had. At this time, Yi Haomiao also stood out and said, everyone, don't be deceived by this woman's appearance. She was only a cultivator of the Xiao clan's branch family. Compared to ordinary cultivators, her usual cultivation resources were indeed much more abundant. However, so many healing pills were not something that she could take out. She only said that because she saw our medicinal pills and became greedy. That's why she said that. She's really too vicious. Xiao Rojin had already realized that things were not going well when Di Beichun revealed Bailey Hongshuang's identity. If everyone believed her before, then after this incident, they believed Bailey Hongshuang and the others even more. She could not let things continue like this. Otherwise, she would be the one who would find it difficult to establish herself in the Raging Flames sect in the future. Even with the Xiao clan's identity, no one dared to say anything to her. But just their gazes were not something she could bear. You're a pill refiner just because you say so? It's obvious that these pills are all in my name. It's just to cover up this point. That's why I made up such an excuse. Xiao Rojin's face was full of disdain. No matter what the situation was, she could only continue to act. Once she showed the slightest bit of guilt, she would lose. Everyone, don't be deceived by them. This Wang Yinhan originally had enmity with me. Naturally, he took advantage of me and even poured dirty water on me. Seeing the two sides arguing, everyone was puzzled. For a moment, they didn't know who to believe. Bailey Hongshuang found it funny. Am I not an alchemist? But was this something that could be covered up by lying? Don't worry, I'll head directly to the Alchemist Guild very soon. At that time, we'll know who's telling the truth. Xiao Rojin had obviously made up her mind to not let Bailey Hongshuang have the slightest possibility of evading. She immediately said, "You want to stall for time here? If I let you leave like this today, will you still stay in Roman City? I'm not a fool. Don't use such a boring trick to deceive me. This is simple. We just need to find a witness." Chapter 45-42. Who are you looking for as a witness? Xiao Rojin asked in dissatisfaction. You are from the Raging Flame School, and we are from the Azure Dragon School. Naturally, we are looking for the stewards of both sides to be witnesses, Di Beichun said coldly. He had originally planned to take Xiao Rojin's life directly, but now he felt that since Xiao Rojin wanted to play, he would play with her. It would be too easy for this woman to die so easily. Hearing that Di Beichun wanted to call the stewards of both sides, Xiao Rojin's expression couldn't help but change. Once the stewards of both sides were present, and Bailey Hongshuang really proved her identity as an alchemist, then her lie would be exposed. What? You don't dare? Bailey Hongshuang raised her eyebrows slightly, and her delicate face was filled with coldness. If you admit that you are slandering us now, as long as you cripple both of your arms, we will forgive you. Bailey Hongshuang's deep, dark eyes were filled with ridicule. After hearing this, everyone understood that Bailey Hongshuang was mocking what Xiao Rojin had said before. After all, Xiao Rojin had asked Wang Yinhan to cut off one of his arms. Your Azure Dragon School and our Raging Flame School have always had conflicts, so the steward is naturally on your side. Cut the crap and hand over my medicinal pills now. Seeing Xiao Rojin's constant refusal, everyone who didn't understand at first all understood now. No one was a fool. From Xiao Rojin's initial aggressiveness to her current evasiveness, the truth was already very obvious. I really didn't expect Xiao Rojin of the Raging Flame School to be so shameless. She kept saying that she looked down on the cultivators of the lower realm and coveted their medicinal pills. That's enough. As I said before, this kind of woman is the dirtiest. On the surface, she looks pure and lovely, but behind her back, who knows how vicious and vicious she is. From the looks of it, I feel that Bailey Hongshuang and Di Beichun of the Raging Flame School might have died in her scheme. Didn't this matter cause an uproar in the Raging Flame School before? Maybe Xiao Rojin wanted to take the opportunity to chase him out because Wang Yinhan exposed this matter. Just when the situation was one-sided, a figure suddenly appeared beside Xiao Rojin. Xiao Rojin, what happened? Xiao Rojin, who didn't know what to do, couldn't help but light up when she heard this familiar voice. Steward's son, Bailey Hongshuang, and the others were familiar with this person. There were several stewards in the House of Raging Flames. Steward Wu was the one who dealt with them the most, and Steward Sun was also one of the stewards. Manager Sun is usually very close to Xiao Rojin. I'm afraid he will side with Xiao Rojin now. Wang Yinhan's voice was heard by Bailey Hongshuang and the others. Her expression became very complicated. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' gazes changed slightly. They already had some considerations in their hearts. After seeing that Steward's son had come, Xiao Rojin immediately gained confidence and hurriedly said, "Steward's son, this woman stole my medicinal pills, and Wanyan Han is in cahoots with them. You must help me." As Xiao Rojin's voice fell, Steward's son's gaze couldn't help but fall on Wanyan Han and Bailey Hongzhuang. In fact, he already had some understanding of this matter when he was outside. He also understood that this matter was probably fabricated out of thin air by Xiao Rojin, but so what? Chapter 45-43. Hurry up and take out Xiao Rojin's pills. Stealing at such a young age, this is intolerable. Manager's son looked indignant, as if he couldn't tolerate this kind of thing. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but sigh when they saw this scene. Manager's son really knew how to put on an act. His acting ability was even better than Xiao Rojin's. "Manager's son, this matter hasn't been concluded yet. How can you directly conclude that it's our fault?" Yi Haomiao couldn't help but retort. Manager's son's face turned cold when he saw that Yi Haomiao dared to refute him. "Yi Haomiao, you have to be clear. You're from the Blazing Flame School, and now you're actually mingling with the Azure Dragon School. Are you thinking of betraying the Blazing Flame School?" "Steward's son, these are two separate matters. How can you mix these matters together?" Wanyan Han frowned. Although he had already guessed that Manager's son would side with Xiao Rojin, it was a bit too much to go to this extent. "Are you saying that I'm being unfair now?" Manager's son raised his voice, the displeasure and anger in his eyes growing stronger. "Wanyan Han, don't think that you're so arrogant just because Manager was taking a liking to you. How dare you challenge the authority of a manager? Why can't you tell right from wrong? Whatever you say is the truth. You don't care about the truth of this matter. Could it be that you can arbitrarily convict people just because you have a lot of power?" Wanyan Han couldn't hold it in anymore. He had never seen such an unreasonable manager. Manager's son's expression was extremely ugly after being questioned by the disciples of the Blazing Flame School one after another. He originally thought that after he spoke, Wanyan Han and the others wouldn't dare to refute him. After all, he was a manager. If they wanted to continue staying in the Blazing Flame School, they definitely wouldn't dare to offend him. However, he didn't expect the situation to be completely different for what he expected. The people of the Azure Dragon School hadn't even spoken yet, but he was already being questioned by his own disciples. "I think you're in Chao's camp, but your hearts are elsewhere. You don't want to properly stay in the Blazing Flame School anymore." Manager's son's voice was cold and full of threat. He secretly decided that when he returned this time, he would definitely punish Wanyan Han and the others properly. "If you don't want to stay, then don't. What's so rare about it?" Yi Haomiao said coldly. Wanyan Han also spoke up. "I don't believe that there is no place for us in the upper realm. No matter what, we must know the truth today." Wanyan Han was calm inside. He was indeed reluctant to leave the Scorching Flames sect. He had never thought about leaving before, but from the moment they offended Caretaker's son, he understood that it was impossible for them to remain in the Scorching Flames sect. Even if they wanted to continue staying here, with Manager's son's needle-like heart, he would definitely find trouble with them everywhere. Rather than leaving the House of Raging Flames in a sullen manner, he might as well leave now. At the very least, they would still be innocent. Following Wanyan Han's words, Manager's son's expression became extremely ugly. He was so angry that he laughed and said, "Good, very good. You've grown wings. Steward's son is really impressive." A mocking laugh was heard, and another figure appeared beside Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Noticing this figure, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichin couldn't help but bow. "Steward Li." The person who came was none other than Steward Li of the Azure Dragon School. Chapter 45-44. Steward's son's heart skipped a beat when he saw Steward Li of the Azure Dragon clan appear. Originally, this matter should have been resolved immediately if he were to step in. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had suffered a loss, the pills had fallen into their hands. It was impossible for the Azure Dragon clan to get back at them. He didn't expect that Manager Li would appear now. Things had become difficult to handle. However, the youths of your Blazing Flame sect are very courageous. I admire them. Steward Li's gaze fell on Wan Han and the other two. Look at the Blazing Flames sect. It's not a big deal. Since you know Sita Chang and the others, if you're interested, why don't you join our Azure Dragon clan? Hearing this, Wan Han and the other two were shocked. They were still thinking about where to go after leaving the Blazing Flames sect. They did not expect the Azure Dragon clan to extend an olive branch to them. Thank you, Steward Li. Seeing this, Steward Li nodded in satisfaction. Only then did he see Bailey Hongzhuang and asked, Lan Yishuan, what happened? Steward Li, Xiao Rojin discovered that I had many pills on me. She was greedy and wanted to take them away, so she found an excuse to say that I stole her pills. In fact, these pills were all refined by me. After Xiao Rojin could not win against me, their steward son began to throw his weight around and wanted to forcibly take away my cultivation resources. Steward Li nodded in understanding. Steward son, you should have heard it clearly. These pills were refined by the disciples of the Azure Dragon clan. If you want to label the disciples of the Azure Dragon clan as thieves, you must at least show enough evidence. Otherwise, I will not agree. Steward Li's aura suddenly exploded. This matter did not only concern the dignity of Bailey Hongzhuang and Lan Yishuan, but also the face of the Azure Dragon clan. He would not allow the Blazing Flames sect to be labeled as such. As soon as Steward Li appeared, Steward Sun had already realized that the matter was not easy to resolve. Now that he saw the other party's aggressive manner, he could not help but frown. He had long known that everything Xiao Rojin said was fabricated, so naturally, there was no evidence. If you can't produce any evidence, you should know how to deal with this matter. Manager Li's voice was ice-cold as he said. Manager Sun's expression was complicated. He couldn't help but look at Xiao Rojin with some resentment in his heart. This guy was really too stupid. The other party was clearly an alchemist, yet she actually came up with such a demonic reason. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't believe it. A smile appeared on the faces of Yi Hao Miao and the others. Fortunately, Manager Li had appeared. The situation had changed once again. They wanted to see how Xiao Rojin would end this. Steward Li, Xiao Rojin not only slandered us before, but also wanted Wan Han's arm. Bailey Hongzhuang quietly reminded him. Since Xiao Rojin was so vicious, she must pay the same price. Manager Li naturally understood the meaning behind Bailey Hongzhuang's words at this moment. His gaze then fell on Xiao Rojin, and his voice was cold and unquestionable. Since this matter arose because of you, then it will be resolved from you. As long as you cripple both your arms and admit that everything is your slander, I will let this matter go. As soon as these words were spoken, Xiao Rojin's face immediately turned pale. Chapter 45-45. Thinking of this, Xiao Rojin hurriedly looked at Steward Sunday. At this moment, Steward Sun was her only hope. Steward Sun naturally felt Xiao Rojin's gaze. However, Steward Li's status was not inferior to his. Previously, when Steward Li was not here, it was not a big deal for him to teach the Azure Dragon Gate disciple a lesson. However, now that Steward Li was here and the Azure Dragon Gate was in the right, he naturally could not say anything more. Otherwise, if they were to get serious, the Azure Dragon Gate would not be afraid of the Blazing Flames Gate at all. Moreover, if it reached that point, the Blazing Flames Gate might even give up on him. Noticing that Steward Sun did not say a word, Xiao Rojin's face turned pale. She understood that Steward Sun had chosen a compromise. Break her own arms. At this moment, Xiao Rojin really wished that none of this had happened. If she had known this would happen, she would not have been so greedy. Now that she had gone for wool and come home shorn, it was really sad. Hurry up, I don't have time to wait for you. Steward Li's voice was extremely cold. If this was the Blazing Flames Gate's own matter, it would be fine. However, they wanted to bully their Azure Dragon Gate disciple. They were simply dreaming. Xiao Rojin's eyes were slightly red. She had never suffered such grievances in her life. However, in the current situation, she had no other choice. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had cold expressions. All of this was Xiao Rojin's own doing. She deserved to be punished like this. Just as Xiao Rojin was about to harden her heart and break her own arms, a voice sounded again. Steward Li, Xiao Rojin is a member of the Xiao clan. Aren't you not giving the Shao clan face by doing this? Suddenly hearing this voice, Steward Li could not help but frown. He did not understand who was so blind to come looking for trouble at this time. However, when Steward Li saw who it was, his expression changed. If it was an ordinary person, he could completely ignore it. However, it was the vice president of the Holy Assembly, so he had to consider it. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also noticed Gong Tianfeng. I didn't expect Gong Tianfeng to be so nice to Xiao Rojin. She's willing to stand up for Xiao Rojin at this time. Yi Haomiao felt a little strange. Logically speaking, Gong Tianfeng was an extremely selfish woman. She should have chosen to protect herself at a time like this. Just buying people's hearts. I just don't know who the real fox is, Wan Yanling mocked. President Gong, this is a matter between my Azure Dragon School and the Raging Flame School. Are you sure you want to get involved? Manager Li's face darkened. Even though Gong Tianfeng had a lot of influence in Rome and City, he could not give in on this matter. If the cultivators of the Azure Dragon clan were bullied by others, and he, as the steward, could not get back at them, then what cultivators would be willing to join the Azure Dragon clan in the future? Seeing Manager Li being so serious, Zhang Yunfeng frowned slightly. She originally wanted Xiao Rojin to owe her a favor. After all, it was only a matter of a few words. However, if Manager Li was so insistent, things would become a little complicated. Manager Li, actually, as long as she's willing to apologize, this matter will be over. If things get out of hand, the impact won't be too good. Gong Tianfeng's tone softened a little. She did not want to offend the Azure Dragon sect for Xiao Rojin. This was undoubtedly not worth the loss. Chapter 45-46. As soon as Steward Li finished speaking, all the cultivators present immediately understood what he meant. In fact, everyone also felt that what Gong Tianfeng said at this moment was extremely unfair. From Xiao Rojin's aggressive appearance before, if she had succeeded in slandering them, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others would definitely have to bear the consequences. It was definitely not something that could be settled with just an apology. Now that they had gone for wool and come home shorn, they only needed an apology to end it. This price was too easy. Gong Tianfeng's expression was a little difficult to speak, and she was even a little angry out of humiliation. Her words just now were already softening, but Manager Li had no intention of letting her step down at all. This made her extremely unhappy. As the vice president of the Holy Assembly, she was usually respected by everyone. Most people would give her face, but Manager Li did not care about this at all. Manager Li, Xiao Rojin is not only a disciple of the Blazing Flame School, but also a member of our Holy Assembly. You mean you want to protect her? Manager Li narrowed his eyes. He did not expect Gong Tianfeng to say things to this extent. If these two people insisted on stopping them, things would be a little difficult. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Manager Li standing in front of her and was secretly surprised. She did not expect Manager Li to be so protective of them. In fact, ever since she joined the Azure Dragon School, she did not have any sense of belonging to it. She only felt that it was a temporary shelter. However, when she saw Manager Li arguing for their sake, she changed her mind. This was a very humane force. At least this manager was not snobbish at all. He was far better than those selfish managers. Seeing that Manager Li did not back down, Gong Tianfeng's anger also rose. She immediately said angrily, "As long as I'm here today, don't even think about touching a single hair on Xiao Rojin." Xiao Rojin, who was originally helpless, suddenly had a joyful look in her eyes. As long as Gong Tianfeng protected her, she would definitely be fine. I'm a member of the Xiao family. If you treat me like this, the Xiao family will not let you off. The atmosphere suddenly froze. Both sides were in a deadlock. Manager Li looked coldly at Manager Sun and Gong Tianfeng in front of him. With his strength alone, he was afraid that he would not be able to defeat these two people. Moreover, he still had to take care of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. If that was the case, it would be difficult to get justice today. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others naturally understood that the situation in front of them was very unfavorable for Manager Li. If they were previously filled with anger towards Xiao Rojin, after seeing Manager Li doing this for them, The anger in their hearts had dissipated a lot. Justice was in everyone's heart. Now that things had reached this point, everyone already knew the truth. I've seen shameless people before, but I've never seen both the old and the young so shameless. Bailey Hongzhuang sneered. It's really an eye-opener to cover up to this extent. Manager Li, let's go back. They clearly intend to be shameless to the end today. However, anyone with a discerning eye will understand what's going on. Bailey Hongzhuang's words were merciless, every word piercing the heart. Xiao Rojin and Gong Tianfeng's faces were ugly to the extreme, but in this case, even if they refuted, it was pale and powerless, so they simply stopped talking. Chapter 45-47. Of course, we can't just let this matter go. Another loud and confident voice sounded. Hearing this voice, everyone couldn't help but turn to look in the direction of the voice. No one expected that this matter would have so many twists and turns. One person after another appeared. They didn't expect that after the vice president of the Holy Assembly, there would still be someone who dared to stand up. Was he not afraid of offending the Holy Assembly? In their line of sight, a young man slowly walked over. His handsome face was like an exquisite work of the heavens. He was elegant and unparalleled in his handsomeness. After seeing the man, many women around them had deep admiration in their eyes. Such a man was enough to make people fall in love at first sight. After seeing the man, Xiao Rojin's expression changed again and again. Such a handsome man, other than Di Beichun, whom she had met before, no one else could compare to him. However, Di Beichun was a cultivator from the lower realm, and this man had a dignified appearance and extraordinary temperament. Obviously, his background wasn't simple either. Immediately, she couldn't help but reach out to stroke her hair. She almost forgot what was going on in front of her. When Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichun, and Wan Yinling saw the man, they couldn't help but be stunned. None of them expected to see him again here. This man was none other than Di Xiaofeng. Noticing Bailey Hongzhuang and Wan Yinling's gaze, Di Xiaofeng quietly gave them a look. Di Xiaofeng was also very surprised. He originally thought that after coming to Rome and City, he didn't know when he would be able to find Situ in Wan Yinling. After all, Rome and City wasn't small. If Situ and Wan Yinling lived here very low-key, it would take some time to find them. What worried him the most was that if the two left Rome and City, he didn't know when he would be able to find them. However, he didn't expect to see them as soon as he arrived in Rome and City. It was really too coincidental. However, judging from the situation in front of him, they seemed to be in trouble. Who are you? Gong Tianfeng looked at Di Xiaofeng gloomily. She had never seen this person before, but she was sure that this person was definitely not from Rome and City. However, from the aura that this person exuded, she felt that he was not an ordinary person. As the vice president of the Radiant Sacred Assembly, she had seen many people over the years. She had a good eye for people, but why was this person helping these people from the Azure Dragon sect? It doesn't matter who I am, but it's obvious that you're in the wrong, yet you're doing whatever you want just because you're from the Holy Light Assembly. Isn't that too embarrassing? Di Xiaofeng had also heard some of the content before. When he saw Gong Tianfeng being unreasonable after losing to Manager Li, he also felt speechless. How can such a person become the vice president of the Radiant Sacred Assembly? The Radiant Sacred Assembly is becoming more and more depraved. How dare you say that about the Holy Assembly? You must be tired of living. Gong Tianfeng's expression changed. She would never tolerate anyone who spoke ill of the Holy Assembly. Listen up, Situ and the others are my friends. Let that woman break her own arms right now, and this matter will be over. Otherwise, none of you three will be able to leave today. Di Xiaofeng's voice was cold. How dare you bully my friend? You're courting death. Chapter 45-48. Thinking of this, Manager Li also nodded at Di Xiaofeng. He felt a little strange. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were cultivators who just came from the lower realm. How could they know someone with such an extraordinary identity? However, on second thought, Bailey Hongzhuang had the identity of an alchemist, so it was not strange. Di Xiaofeng also nodded at Manager Li. Then, his gaze fell on Gong Tianfeng and Xiao Rojin again. I also know many people from the Xiao family. How come I've never seen you before? If you use the name of the Shao family to bully others, you should know the consequences if the Shao family finds out. Di Xiaofeng's expression was indifferent. His gaze inadvertently swept across Xiao Roujin's face. The Di family and the Shao family were familiar with each other. He had also gone to the Shao family many times. Naturally, he could be sure that this person was not from the Shao family at all. At least, she was not a direct descendant of the Shao family. Following Di Xiaofeng's words, Xiao Roujin's expression suddenly changed. You know someone from the main family? If Xiao Roujin could still maintain her calm before, she could not do so now. She knew very well that once this matter was spread back, she would definitely die. Of course. I'll cripple my arms immediately. Can you not tell the main family? Xiao Roujin hurriedly said. She didn't doubt that this person was lying because he was too confident. Almost without hesitation, Xiao Roujin raised her hand and crippled her own arm. The intense pain caused her to groan, but she still endured it. If her arms were crippled, she would be able to recover after a period of time. If she lost her life, then there was no other way. Wang Yanhan and the others were shocked when they saw this scene. They did not expect Xiao Roujin to be so straightforward when she was unwilling before. Seeing her being angry but not daring to say anything, they felt a wave of comfort in their hearts. She deserved it. However, a thought appeared in Bailey Hongshuang's mind. Previously, they had guessed whether Di Xiaofeng was related to the Di family, but Di Xiaofeng did not admit it. But now, Di Xiaofeng said that he knew people from the Xiao clan. If this was true, didn't that mean that Di Xiaofeng was from the Di clan? Otherwise, Di Xiaofeng wouldn't have had the chance to come into contact with the Xiao family. Bailey Hongshuang turned to look at Di Beichen. She found that Di Beichen was also deep in thought. It seemed that they were thinking of the same problem. When Gong Tianfeng saw that Xiao Roujin had crippled her arm without saying a word, her expression became extremely ugly. If she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have helped Xiao Roujin. Now, not only was it useless, but she had also caused trouble. Since Xiao Roujin has already suffered greatly, let's just forget about it, Gong Tianfeng said. She did not want to stay here any longer. She just wanted to leave as soon as possible. Di Xiaofeng naturally wouldn't let Gong Tianfeng do as she wished. As the vice president of the Holy Light Assembly, the most important thing is to be fair and just. Since you're so unfair, I think you should step down from your position as the vice president. Otherwise, you'll look even worse. When he said this, Gong Tianfeng's expression became extremely ugly. Who exactly are you? What right do you have to make me step down? Chapter 45-49. I'm from the Di family. Di Xiaofeng's eyes were filled with a cold light. His voice was calm and indifferent. Following Di Xiaofeng's words, Xiao Roujin, who was still guessing in her heart, suddenly trembled and fear appeared in her eyes. Others might not know about the Di family, because the people in Rome and city simply could not come into contact with such an existence. However, as a member of the Xiao family's branch family, she had long heard of the Di family. The Di family was an existence that was not any weaker than the Xiao family. She had never thought that the man in front of her was actually a direct descendant of the Di family. In comparison, a person like him was like an ant in front of him. Gong Tianfeng frowned. Although she was the vice president of the Radiant Sacred Assembly in Rome and city, she simply could not come into contact with those huge families with her status. However, when she noticed Xiao Roujin's pale face, she knew that she had kicked an iron plate this time. Even if you're from the Di family, you can't control our Radiant Sacred Assembly, Gong Tianfeng hurriedly said. She had worked so hard for so many years to obtain her current status. She definitely could not lose everything like this. Coincidentally, I happen to know the president of the Radiant Sacred Assembly. Do you think it's better for you to step down yourself, or for me to tell him and let him step in? Di Xiaofeng looked at Gong Tianfeng indifferently. He felt that there was no need to even make a move against this kind of person. Once these words came out, Gong Tianfeng's body trembled. Her entire body could not help but tremble. No, you can't do this. Zhuo Hongyan was originally cultivating in the Radiant Sacred Assembly when he was suddenly disturbed. This made him very unhappy. However, after hearing the ins and outs of the matter, he did not care about getting angry and immediately rushed to the location of the incident. Young Master D, I'm the president of the Radiant Sacred Assembly in Rome and City, Zhuangyan. Zhuangyan's face was filled with smiles. Although he was only the president of the division, he already had some understanding of some of the top forces in the Shangxian continent. The D family was one of them. Not only that, the D family's relationship with the Radiant Sacred Assembly could be said to be extremely good. However, he didn't expect that a direct descendant of the D family would come to a small place like Rome and City. The most important thing was that Gong Tianfeng had a conflict with them. Wasn't she courting death? Since the president is here, you should know what to do, right? Di Xiaofeng said calmly. Zhuangyan quickly nodded. Of course. In fact, I've already punished her since she stopped a talented cultivator from joining the Holy Assembly. I didn't expect her to be so stubborn. I'll kick her out of the Holy Assembly now. Zhuangyan turned to look at Gong Tianfeng. From now on, you have nothing to do with the Holy Assembly. Don't use the name of the Holy Assembly when you go out in the future. Otherwise, I'll be the first to punish you if I find out. Gong Tianfeng's face was deathly pale. She had never thought that things would suddenly turn out like this. If she left the Holy Light Assembly, where should she go? She had offended quite a few people over the years. Once she lost her status, she could imagine the consequences just by thinking about it. Chapter 4550. At this time, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were thinking about what Di Xiaofeng said. He was from the D family. Ever since they came to the upper realm, they had always hoped to go to the D family as soon as possible because Di Beichun was a disciple of the D family. However, Di Xiaofeng was actually from the D family. He didn't go anywhere but came to Rome and City. This couldn't be a coincidence. Di Beichun, Xiaofeng is from the D family. Could he have been sent by the D family to find you? Bailey Hongzhuang transmitted. Di Xiaofeng's eyes were complicated. The situation is still unclear. Let's not expose ourselves for the time being. He believed in Di Xiaofeng's character, but ever since the matter of being chased, he had to be careful. Someone didn't want him to return to the D family, so they did everything possible to stop him. Before figuring out whether the other party was friend or foe, he couldn't expose his identity. In fact, not to mention that Di Xiaofeng's strength wasn't simple. The middle-aged man beside him hadn't said a word since he came. However, none of them could ignore that this person was definitely a true expert. Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was clear. Do you remember Xiaofeng saying that he had been hunted down before? Could it be that the people chasing after you and him are the same people? She still remembered the scene when she saved Di Xiaofeng. At that time, his injuries were very serious. If they hadn't happened to meet them, it would have been very dangerous in the dark forest. Di Beichun nodded. He also thought of this point. In fact, he instinctively didn't want to think that Di Xiaofeng was someone who didn't want him to go back. When Zhuangyan made the decision, Gong Tianfeng knew that she was powerless to reverse the situation. She immediately looked coldly at Xiao Rojin. If it wasn't for helping her, how could she be reduced to such a situation? Noticing Gong Tianfeng's vicious gaze, Xiao Rojin couldn't help but shiver. However, she lowered her head and didn't say a word. By the way, since you're all here, I'll ask you about something. Di Xiaofeng looked at Zhuangyan, manager's son, and managerly in front of him. He already knew that these guys were from the more outstanding forces in Rome and City. At this moment, he didn't even care about communicating with Di Beichun and the others. He was more eager to know his brother's situation. Although they all knew that the possibility of Di Beichun being alive was very small, he still had a trace of hope. Young Master Di, please speak. We will definitely tell you everything we know. Di Xiaofeng nodded, and Xiao Rojin. They. Di Xiaofeng's gaze fell on Zhuangyan and the others. Seeing the sudden change in their expressions, he understood that these people in front of him all knew. Tell me in detail. Di Xiaofeng's voice was deep and filled with endless majesty. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at each other. Yi Haomiao and Wan Yanhan were secretly shocked. Their eyes were filled with doubt. Di Beichun immediately gave them a look. Only then did they suppress the doubt in their hearts. Chapter 4551. Not only that Bailey Hongzhuang is also a member of our Radiant Sacred Assembly. At this time, Manager's son also cupped his hands and said, "That's right, they were indeed members of our Raging Flames sect." "Then where are they now?" Di Xiaofeng quickly asked. "May I ask, what is your relationship with them?" Zhuo Hongyan probed. When Zhuo Hongyan raised this question, everyone's eyes fell on Di Xiaofeng. Both of them had the surname Di, so everyone couldn't help but have some guesses in their hearts. Di Beichun is my younger brother. Di Xiaofeng didn't hide it at all. As soon as these words came out, everyone present felt as if they had been hit by a heavy blow. They looked at Di Xiaofeng in astonishment and couldn't recover for a moment. Xiao Rojin looked at Di Xiaofeng in a daze. Stormy waves were already surging in her heart. Weren't Di Beichun and the others cultivators from the lower realm? How could they be members of the Di family? However, looking at Di Xiaofeng's serious appearance, it was obvious that what he said couldn't be a lie. At this time, Xiao Rojin was about to die from regret. If she had known earlier, she definitely wouldn't have gone against Di Beichun and the others. Now, she could almost imagine what kind of anger she would have to endure later. Originally, Gong Tianfeng wanted to settle the score with Xiao Rojin, but at this moment, she no longer had this thought. She quietly stepped back and gradually retreated into the crowd. Losing the position of vice president was already very tragic, but compared to losing her life, this was nothing. "Tell me, what happened to Beichun and the others?" Di Xiaofeng's gaze locked on Zhuo Hongyan and Manager Sunday. These two definitely knew the ins and outs of all this. "Young Master Di, although Bailey Hongzhuang is a member of our Radiant Sacred Assembly, I really don't know what happened to her later. When she joined the Radiant Sacred Assembly, I wasn't in Rong'an City. Although Gong Tianfeng obstructed her a lot, I stopped Gong Tianfeng after I returned. Previously, I said that I would punish Gong Tianfeng because of this matter. Later on, Bailey Hongzhuang returned to the Raging Flame School, so I don't know what happened." Zhuo Hongyan bluntly told him everything he knew. When Steward's son saw that Zhuo Hongyan had pushed all the questions to him, he secretly cursed the old fox in his heart. "You said that Gong Tianfeng was looking for trouble with my sister-in-law?" Di Xiaofeng's brows were tightly knitted. He had long felt that woman was an eyesore, but he didn't expect her to bully his sister-in-law before. Zhuo Hongyan nodded. "Indeed, many people in Rome and city know about this." At this moment, Manager Li stepped forward and said, "Young Master Di, President Zhuo is speaking the truth." Gong Tianfeng. Di Xiaofeng's face was gloomy, but Gong Tianfeng was nowhere to be seen. While they were talking, Gong Tianfeng realized that things were not going well and quickly ran away. "Grand Elder." Di Xiaofeng turned his head and looked at the man behind him. The man immediately cupped his fist and said, "Young Master, don't worry. She won't be able to escape." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone found that the man suddenly disappeared from their sight. "Speak." Di Xiaofeng's gaze turned to Manager's son, his attitude firm. Manager's son's body trembled slightly, and even his voice was trembling. They died in the training, but this matter wasn't my responsibility, so I'm not very clear about the specific situation. Chapter 4552. Although he already knew that this was the most likely result before he came, when he really heard the answer, he still couldn't help but feel sad. His brother's life was really too hard. He finally returned to the upper realm, but he couldn't return to the family. If only he was in the family at that time. If he could come to Rome and city earlier, maybe this wouldn't be the case. "Tell me the details," Di Xiaofeng said in a deep voice. "I heard that they were suddenly attacked by black-clothed men when they were training in the demonic dragon abyss." Manager's son was drenched in cold sweat. He really didn't know much about this situation because Wu Wenfeng was originally in charge of this. However, now that Di Xiaofeng asked him, he had to answer. While thinking, Manager's son's gaze fell on Xiao Rojin, and his eyes suddenly lit up. "Young Master Di, the person who was training with Di Beichun at that time was Xiao Rojin. Why don't you ask her?" When Manager's son proposed to let Di Xiaofeng ask Xiao Rojin, the cultivators present couldn't help but sneer. Could it be that Manager's son is scared out of his wits? Isn't the reason why Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang are in trouble because of Xiao Rojin? Xiao Rojin previously treated Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang as cultivators from the lower realm and targeted them everywhere. I didn't expect them to have such an extraordinary background. I'm afraid she's going to be miserable now. When I first saw Di Beichen, I felt that his identity was extraordinary. I didn't expect him to have such an extraordinary background. At the same time, Xiao Rojin was already regretting it to the extreme. She was really going crazy. She couldn't understand why Di Beichen had such a deep background. So why did he pretend to be a cultivator from the lower realm in front of her? If he had said such an identity earlier, she definitely wouldn't have looked for trouble. But now that things had fallen into such a situation, she was afraid that it was useless no matter what she said. Di Xiaofeng also heard the conversation of the surrounding cultivators, and his eyes immediately locked onto a person behind him. What did you just say? Beichen's death is related to Xiao Rojin? The man suddenly became nervous when Di Xiaofeng stared at him. He nodded affirmatively. That's what everyone said. The news came from the Raging Flames sect. All right, if you don't believe me, you can ask Wang Yanhan. He's Di Beichen's senior, so he knows better. Wang Yanhan. Di Xiaofeng frowned. Who is Wang Yanhan? At this moment, Wang Yanhan walked in front of Di Xiaofeng. I am. You're Beichen's senior? Wang Yanhan nodded slightly. That's right. Beichen and Hongzhuang are my junior brothers and sisters. They joined the Inferno School because I was there. Can you tell me what happened? Di Xiaofeng's tone softened a bit. Facing Beichen's friends, he naturally wouldn't be so overbearing. Wang Yanhan quietly looked at Di Beichen. In fact, he felt that the situation in front of him was very strange. Di Beichen was clearly here, but Wang Yanhan was still asking around about Di Beichen. However, even though he was full of doubts, since this was something Di Beichen decided, he naturally had to help cover it up. Chapter 45-53. When I rushed over after knowing the situation, Beichen and Hongzhuang were already gone. Every time this matter was brought up, Wang Yanhan felt that Xiao Rojin was extremely hateful. It was fortunate that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were lucky. If it was an ordinary person, they would have lost their life long ago. Therefore, Xiao Rojin still couldn't be dragged out of this matter. So, this woman did it on purpose? Di Xiaofeng narrowed his eyes, his dark pupils rippling with a cold light. This woman was actually so vicious. Originally, his father suspected the Jun family. Now that the Xiao family's branch family members were here, he didn't know if the Xiao family was involved in this conspiracy. If the Xiao family was involved, then this matter would become even more troublesome. In the next second, Di Xiaofeng's gaze became firm again. No matter who dared to make a move on his brother, the Di family would definitely not let them go. Seeing Di Xiaofeng's gaze fall on her head, Xiao Rojin understood that if she didn't say anything, this day next year would be her death anniversary. Young Master Di, it was Bailey Hongzhuang who told us to leave at that time. Their death has nothing to do with me. Xiao Rojin hurriedly waved her hands, only hoping to clear her name. This matter, did your Xiao family make a move? Di Xiaofeng ignored Xiao Rojin's words and lowered his voice to ask. Hearing Di Xiaofeng's words, Xiao Rojin's expression changed a bit. She also didn't know if this matter had anything to do with the Xiao family. If she revealed this situation, even if Di Xiaofeng let her go today, the main family probably wouldn't forgive her. At this moment, a loud sound came from not far away from her. She looked over and saw that there was an additional figure on the ground. At this moment, it was clearly lifeless and had turned into a corpse. This person was none other than Gong Tianfeng, who had escaped before. Looking at Gong Tianfeng's corpse, the cultivators present all sucked in a breath of cold air. It had only been a short period of time since Gong Tianfeng had escaped. Unexpectedly, she had already turned into a corpse. This showed how powerful this middle-aged man was. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also looked at Gong Tianfeng's corpse. From the shock on their faces, they could tell that the other party had killed her with a single blow. It was a complete suppression, so much so that Gong Tianfeng didn't even have time to fight back. Young master, it's settled. The man stood beside Di Xiaofeng again. Even though he was silent, no one dared to ignore him. Di Xiaofeng nodded slightly and looked at Xiao Rojin again. Hurry up and answer me while I still have the patience. Otherwise, at this moment, Xiao Rojin couldn't care about anything else. She immediately told him everything she knew. I'm not targeting Di Beichen. It's just that Bailey Hongzhuang's talent in the light attribute is rather outstanding and has some influence on our Xiao family. That's why I sent this news back to the family. As for the rest, I really don't know anything. Xiao Rojin's face was extremely pale. Although she was only a branch family disciple of the Xiao family, she was like a fish in water in Rome and city. She didn't want to lose her life because of this matter. Hearing this, Di Xiaofeng didn't suspect that Xiao Rojin was lying. In fact, the Xiao family's true decision wasn't something a branch family disciple like Xiao Rojin could know. Chapter 45-54. Since you don't know anything, there's no use for you to live. Emperor Xiaofeng's voice was cold. After saying this, he didn't even bother to look at Xiao Rojin. Originally, he despised Xiao Rojin's character very much, but he wasn't a bloodthirsty person. Since he had already been punished, it was fine. Moreover, since this person had a grudge with Situ and the others, he believed that Situ and the others would settle it themselves. With his appearance, neither the Radiant Sacred Assembly nor the Raging Flame sect would interfere in this matter. However, when he found out that Xiao Rojin was actually involved in the death of his younger brother and sister-in-law, Xiao Rojin was destined to be a dead person. Regardless of whether this matter was done by the Xiao family or not, since this woman was hostile to Beichen and the others and didn't save them at the critical moment, he definitely couldn't forgive her. The first elder on the side had already shown his killing intent when he heard of Xiao Rojin's actions. A mere branch family disciple dared to make a move on their young master. She was simply courting death. After hearing Emperor Xiaofeng's words, the first elder didn't hesitate to make a move and directly slapped the top of Xiao Rojin's head. Xiao Rojin clearly understood that danger was approaching. She wanted to escape immediately, but just as she was about to escape, an aura locked onto her, causing her to be unable to move at all. Immediately after, she felt a sharp pain. Her origin energy began to dissipate, and her vitality began to dissipate. Before she died, her eyes fell on Di Xiaofeng, Bailey Hongzhuang, and the others. She never thought that she would die in the hands of these cultivators from the lower world that she had never put in her eyes. Seeing Xiao Rojin die in front of him like this, Manager Sun's heart was filled with shock, but he didn't dare to say anything. The Di family was a huge family. Not to mention Xiao Rojin. Even if Emperor Xiaofeng wanted to destroy the entire Raging Flame sect, what could they say? Right now, he only hoped that Emperor Xiaofeng wouldn't implicate the Raging Flame sect because of this matter. Otherwise, it would really be over. At this moment, Zhuo Hongyan also had the same thought. He never thought that the two young people from back then would have such a terrifying background. Although he couldn't understand why Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang had such a powerful background, they still pretended to be cultivators from the lower realm. But now, it seemed that Di Beichen had some conflict with his family and left home. This kind of situation was not uncommon. Fortunately, he didn't treat Bailey Hongzhuang back then. This Di Xiaofeng didn't seem to be an unreasonable person. Manager Li looked at the unforeseen event in front of him and secretly exclaimed in his heart. None of them could afford to offend such a person. Fortunately, this matter had nothing to do with the Azure Dragon School. If they could use this matter to suppress the Raging Flame School, they would be more than happy to see it. Who was the person in charge of this matter in your Raging Flame School? Di Xiaofeng said coldly. Even though he knew that Di Beichen's death was due to the pursuit of other forces, the Raging Flame Gate was also responsible. Since he came to Rome and City this time, he naturally had to understand the situation here. Chapter 45-55. When everyone saw Manager Sun hurriedly push all the blame to Manager Wu, they felt some disdain in their hearts. Manager Sun was very arrogant when he was flaunting his power. Now that he had admitted defeat, he completely pushed all the blame away. From this, one could see his character. However, at this moment, Manager Sun couldn't care less about what others thought of him. Just now, he, Gong Tianfeng, and Xiao Rojin were standing on the same line. Now that Gong Tianfeng and Xiao Rojin had fallen, his greatest hope was to save his own life. Other than that, nothing else was important. Young Master D, you just have to ask Manager Wu. He knows everything very well. Manager Sun smiled embarrassedly. At this moment, Wang Yanhan couldn't help but stand up and say, Young Master D, Manager Wu has always taken good care of Beichen and Beichen. Manager Wu is also very sorry for their deaths. Hearing this, Di Xiaofeng glanced at Wang Yanhan and then nodded. First Elder, go with Manager Sun to the Raging Flames sect and ask about the situation. I have some things to tell my friends. Yes, young master. In the next moment, the First Elder took a step forward and lifted Manager Sun up like a chick. His figure quickly flew in the direction of the Raging Flames sect. Seeing this, Zhuo Hongyan cupped his hands and said, Young Master D, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. You may leave. At the same time, Manager Li didn't stay any longer. Clearly, there was nothing else for him to do here. Di Xiaofeng waved his hand and turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun behind him. Situ, Yishuan, I didn't expect to meet you as soon as I came to Rong'an City. What a coincidence! When facing Di Beichun and the others, the coldness on Di Xiaofeng's face disappeared and he became more approachable. Xiaofeng, thank you for helping us out just now, Di Beichun said. Di Xiaofeng smiled faintly. Situ, you're too polite. Even if I didn't step in, you would have found a way to resolve the situation. As the eldest young master of the D clan, his judgment was naturally not simple. Earlier, he had already noticed that Di Beichun already had the intention to kill him. If he hadn't shown up, Di Beichun would have made his move. After all, Xiao Rojin was definitely no match for Di Beichun. It would be neat to kill her directly. In the next instant, Di Xiaofeng's gaze suddenly turned gloomy. Moreover, they bullied my younger brother and sister-in-law. I absolutely can't tolerate them. Thinking that Beichun had really fallen, Di Xiaofeng's mood was very gloomy. If possible, he wished he could meet his own younger brother. For so many years, he had been looking forward to reuniting with his younger brother. This was also the hope of their entire family. Who would have thought that they would not be able to reconcile in the end? Everyone naturally noticed Di Xiaofeng's sad and gloomy mood, and they all fell silent. Bailey Hongzhuang quietly sized up Di Xiaofeng. Ever since the previous incident, both she and Beichun had become very vigilant. They had to get to the bottom of this matter. She felt that Di Xiaofeng's sadness at this moment did not seem to be faked. On the contrary, he seemed to be really sad about Beichun's death. Moreover, in her impression, Di Xiaofeng was not such a sinister person. Even so, they still had to be cautious when dealing with this matter. Chapter 45-56. Young Master Wan Yin, you're my brother and sister-in-law's senior brother. I wonder if you can tell me more about them? Di Xiaofeng calmed himself down and looked at Wang Yanhan. Although the news of Di Beichun's death was basically set in stone, he still wanted to know more about his brother. Wang Yanhan nodded. No problem. There's a restaurant up ahead. Why don't we go there and talk? It's not convenient to talk on the street. Yi Haomiao suggested. After the unforeseen event earlier, they had already become the center of everyone's discussion. Now that they were standing here, there were many cultivators around them who had stopped to watch them. Their words could easily be overheard by others. Okay, in a private room in the restaurant, Di Beichun and the others sat down together. Di Xiaofeng clearly didn't care about the joy of reuniting with Di Beichun and the others. His mind was filled with his brother and sister-in-law situation. So my brother and sister-in-law are both heaven-sent geniuses. After hearing Wang Yanhan's words, Di Xiaofeng also understood. He couldn't help but feel proud. It turned out that his brother and sister-in-law were such geniuses. Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao couldn't help but nod. They're really rare geniuses. If it wasn't for their help, Wang Yanhan and I would have been dead. Then the people who chased after them, did you see clearly? Di Xiaofeng asked. No matter what, I must avenge my brother and sister-in-law. At that time, we saw 3 black-clothed men. Their strength was very strong. In just a face-to-face effort, they had already disappeared in front of our eyes. Moreover, they were all masked. We couldn't catch up to them at all. Wang Yanhan sighed and shook his head. He also hoped to help Di Beichen and Yi Hao Miao find the people who chased after them. Unfortunately, they were helpless against such opponents. "Oh right, you said that you didn't see my brother's body. Only a skeleton army appeared in front of us, right?" Di Xiaofeng keenly grasped the information in Yi Hao Miao's words. His heart tightened as he looked at Yi Hao Miao. "Is that so?" Yi Hao Miao nodded. "Yes. If that's the case, then maybe my brother and the others are still alive." Di Xiaofeng's eyes lit up again. Even though the possibility was small, it was still a possibility. Beichen and Hong Zhuang are both geniuses. Back then, Beichen went to the lower realm. Over the years, many people believed that he had fallen. However, not only is he alive and well, he even came to the upper realm. Maybe there will be a miracle this time. I always feel that the heavens take pity on us. One day, we will be reunited. Seeing Di Xiaofeng's hopeful look, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but ask, "Xiaofeng, are you really looking forward to your brother's return?" "Of course. I only have one younger brother. All these years, the whole family has been hoping that he can come back soon. When my younger brother went missing, my mother cried every day. My father felt even more guilty and has been searching for him for the past 20 years. In fact, I haven't seen my father much over the years, but I understand him. All these years, I've been out a lot. Actually, I've been trying my luck. Maybe I'll be able to see him one day." Chapter 45:57. That's right, Yixian. I have another reason for coming to Rome and City. I want to invite you to my family. Di Xiaofeng couldn't help looking at Bailey Hongzhuang as he spoke. "Your medical skills are very outstanding. I hope you can help me with something. No matter what the reward is, I'll do my best." "Xiaofeng, you don't need to be so polite. Since you need help, I'll go to the Di family." Bailey Hongzhuang spoke up. They had originally planned to go to the Di family. She also wanted to know what Beichen's family was like. "Xiaofeng, you want Xian to go to your family to treat who?" Di Beichen couldn't help but ask. "It's my mother." Di Xiaofeng sighed. "These years, because of my brother's disappearance, my mother has been depressed and crying all day. Her body is already very bad. A few days ago, my mother found out that my brother was still alive and her body got better. However, when she found out that my brother had died, she suffered an even bigger blow and her body is getting worse and worse. Now she has less and less energy. As long as she thinks of Beichen, her face will be covered in tears. If this continues, I'm afraid she won't be able to hold on for much longer. I know Yixian has a way to treat this kind of patient, so I wanted to ask you to treat my mother. This heart knot has been there for many years, and it won't be easy to treat it. However, we've already lost Beichen. We can't lose her too." Di Xiaofeng's eyes reddened. Everyone thought that he was born in such a glorious family, but they couldn't even have the most basic reunion. When he heard that Di Xiaofeng's mother couldn't hold on for much longer, Di Beichen's hand holding the teacup couldn't help but tremble. He didn't even notice the hot tea splashing onto his hand. Bailey Hongshuang's heart couldn't help but tremble. She didn't expect the Di family to be in such a situation. Through Di Xiaofeng's description, she could already imagine the pain and sadness Di Beichen's mother had been in these years. Her son had led a wandering life for so many years, and she could no longer express how much she missed him. Originally, she was already unable to bear the burden of such longing and sadness. Later, she experienced such a blow from heaven to hell, so it was normal for her to become like this. Not to mention her, even if it was anyone else, they would not be able to withstand such a blow. Thinking back to how they had speculated about Beichen's background, it turned out that his parents loved him so much. Even if they didn't go to the Di family, they already knew everything. There was no need to mention Beichen's mother, and his father had been searching for him all these years. Bailey Hongzhuang knew very well that Beichen would have died a long time ago if they hadn't found a doctor who could cure his cursed body. The Supreme Di clan was very clear about this situation. But during these years, they had been persisting in their search, not willing to give up. It was precisely because of the love in their hearts. As for Di Xiaofeng, she no longer doubted him. She noticed that when Di Xiaofeng said that he had never blamed his parents, his tone was very calm and full of understanding. In fact, Di Beichen had been wandering outside all these years. Everyone only felt that he had suffered a lot of grievances, but in fact, for more than 20 years, the people of the D family had obviously put all their attention on Di Beichun. Chapter 4558. Ishuan, I beg you, you must find a way to save my mother. Di Xiaofeng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with red eyes. Now, Bailey Hongzhuang was the only hope he could think of. Di Yujue had already invited all the miracle doctors he could, but there was no effect. If Lan Yishuan couldn't cure his mother, then there was really no hope. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Xiaofeng, don't worry. I will do my best. In fact, as soon as she knew that the patient was Di Beichun's mother, Bailey Hongzhuang would do her best to treat her. That was her mother-in-law. However, she believed that as long as Di Beichun went back, she wouldn't need to do anything and his mother would recover. After all, the heart of the heart had to be cured. Lin Yinqing had been looking forward to Di Beichun's return for so many years. As long as Di Beichun went back, her illness would be mostly cured. Oh right, Brother Wan Yin is my brother and sister-in-law's senior brother. He is also your senior brother. So, you know my brother and sister-in-law too? Di Xiaofeng looked at Di Beichun and Lan Yishuan in surprise. He didn't expect that the two friends he made outside were his brother's senior brother and sister. Yes, we are all from Penglai Palace. Di Beichun smiled faintly. Just as they were talking, when Ziren and the others also rushed over. Just as they opened the door of the private room, when Ziren's impatient voice came in. I heard that you guys had a conflict with Xiao Rojin outside. Along the way, they heard that everyone was talking about this. Even if they didn't see it with their own eyes, they almost understood the whole process. It wasn't until they came in that when Ziren realized that Di Xiaofeng was also here. He immediately cupped his hands to Di Xiaofeng. Young Master Di is also here. Di Xiaofeng smiled and nodded. We meet again. Ziren originally had a stomach full of questions, but after seeing Di Xiaofeng, he swallowed them back down. He had heard that Di Xiaofeng was from the D clan. Didn't they originally plan to go to the D clan? Most importantly, what was the relationship between Di Xiaofeng and Beichun? Di Xiaofeng naturally noticed Ziren's hesitant look, but he didn't care. After all, he had only interacted with Ziren and the others for a short period of time. Naturally, it was impossible for him to tell them everything. Young master, I've already inquired about the matter. The great elder quickly returned, but he didn't continue speaking either. Seeing this, Di Beichun stood up and said, Xiaofeng, since you still have things to do, then we'll go back first. You can directly go to the Azure Dragon Gate and let us know when we're leaving. All right. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the others left, Di Xiaofeng looked at the Great Elder. Great Elder, what's the situation? Hearing Di Xiaofeng's question, the Great Elder didn't immediately answer. Instead, he looked in the direction Di Beichun and the others left and said, Young master, your two friends have disguised themselves. Hearing this, Di Xiaofeng was slightly stunned. Disguise. Chapter 4559. Although I don't know how young master met them, but since they have never treated young master with their true faces, I think it's best to be careful when making friends with them. The great elder's eyes flashed with wisdom and contemplation. Although he had a good impression of Di Beichun, since they were being so secretive, there must be something they couldn't tell others. Di Xiaofeng also didn't expect such a situation. Since Di Beichun saved him, he had always regarded these two as friends that he could make deep friends with. If it wasn't for the great elder's reminder, he would never have known that Di Beichun had disguised themselves. Even so, he still felt that Di Beichun didn't mean to deceive him. Because as early as the first time they met, the two of them had already disguised themselves. Moreover, the two of them had been in disguise ever since they came to Rong'an City. It could be seen that this disguise wasn't targeted at him. Previously, he had heard that they went to Shui Yun City because they were being chased. Presumably, this disguise was also to hide from the people who were chasing them. Great Elder, I believe that they are sincere to me. Di Xiaofeng slowly said. No matter what reason Di Beichun and Di Xiaofeng had disguised themselves, from the day he pretended to be drunk, he knew that the two of them were sincere to him. Seeing that Di Xiaofeng had already confirmed this point, the great elder helplessly shook his head but didn't say anything. He understood that the young master had his own thoughts, and it was useless for him to say anything more. However, he still felt that there was something wrong with people who couldn't be sincere. Great Elder, let's not talk about this for now. Tell me in detail what you learned from the Raging Flames sect. Okay. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked towards the Azure Dragon sect. Xiren couldn't help but ask, "What's going on? Is Di Xiaofeng really from the Di family? Then what's the relationship between you two?" He was really confused now. He just went to the guild and didn't expect so many things to happen. Di Xiaofeng is Beichen's biological brother. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. Di Beichen had been silent the whole time. This sudden situation clearly needed some time to digest. They had already learned from A.O. Lingxiao that Beichen had an older brother, but they didn't expect this older brother to be Di Xiaofeng. Life was really full of coincidences. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, when Zi Rant's voice was sluggish. This situation was really unexpected. Then what do you plan? Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Di Beichen and then said, Beichen's mother was too sad when she heard that he had died. Now she is seriously ill, so we plan to go to the Di family first. No matter what, we cannot let anything happen to his mother. That's true. Zyra nodded. This is also good. If we take this opportunity to go to the Di family, Beichen can safely return to the Di family. The reason why they didn't go to the Di family was because they were worried that they might encounter an accident on the way. Now that Di Xiaofeng was leading the way, their journey would be much smoother. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't say anything. She just gave him a look. Xiren immediately understood. This situation still needed Di Beichen to make the decision. In fact, this kind of thing about one's background, no matter who it was, would need some time to think about it.